Okay, got it. So I've got the cheap pot at home.
But there are some really nice designs.
Educate me.
Tea, white tea, oolong tea, black tea, all come from this plant. This is called Camellia sinensis. There's a larger leaf version.
If you love somebody enough, you follow wherever they go.
Yes, rock and roll guitar. It's my favorite guitar.
Spider Lodge. Watch for it this fall on social media and Chill TV. Your TV, your way. On December 1st, if you can't get to the parade in person, watch it on the Chill TV live stream. Rotary Christmas Parade of Chilliwack, sponsored by the City of Chilliwack and live streamed on chilltv.ca. Your TV, your way.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to your live coverage of the 2018 Chilliwack municipal elections. This is brought to you by Chill TV with major sponsor Waterstone Law Group, presenting sponsor Waterstone Law Group, and major sponsors, all things being Eco, Cowork Chilliwack, and 89.5 The Drive. Today is the day that Chilliwack chooses their leaders in a few different seats. 2 for Cultus Lake Parks Board, 7 for school trustees, 6 for city council, and 1 for mayor. My name is Kirk DeZaman with Next Level Financial, and with me tonight I have a panel of passionate Chilliwack people involved in the community, love Chilliwack. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Sure, Kirk. My name is Kevin Gemmell. I'm the station manager at 89.5 The Drive. And in the 10 years that I've lived here, for 7 years, I was very active on the board as president and past president of the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diane Jansen, and I had the privilege of serving as both a school trustee and also city council.
And good evening. My name is Darren Bosch, and I'm here representing the Chamber of Commerce, of which I am the president.
So, election time. This year, what run it has been. Wouldn't you guys say? How exciting has this been?
Well, it's certainly been a lot of chatter and a lot of signage and a lot of people getting excited about voting day, and we've seen that with certainly an increase in some voting, but just an exciting time with change perhaps on the cusp for our city.
Absolutely, and I think you'd have to go back to 1981 when Chilliwack was swarmed with 14,000 voters, and as a result, there were some electoral difficulties, and there actually had to be a new election. So we've seen excitement like this, but not for 40 years.
Yeah, it's been exciting in the community. If you've been around and talking to everybody seems to be very engaged with the election this year and has opinions and wants to learn more. And I've seen that from different demographics, from younger to older. Everybody seems to be getting involved, and I think that's a wonderful thing, and it should make this a very interesting election.
Absolutely. You mentioned engagement, and I think that's a key thing this year. Like no other years, we've seen social media play a huge part. We've seen people with many polarizing opinions and support for many candidates quite loudly. And if you look at social media, how much do you think that's going to play a role in this election versus past ones?
Well, I think the key there is how many people that are active on social media actually get out and vote. That I'm not sure if there's a correlation between that, but it has been great to see that. But voter turnout is going to tell the tale.
Well, and if perhaps if we can get right into voter turnout and maybe take a look back to 2014, we had 58,000 eligible voters and only 14,800 turned out. That's about 25.5%. This year, depending on who you ask, we're going to have a 60% voter turnout, or we're going to have a 15% voter turnout. We've seen some early numbers come in already, and I predicted with the hope of being dead wrong that we'd see about 29.4, under 30%, so about 18,648 voters. What we have seen as of 7 p.m. tonight is 21,284 votes have been cast. Fantastic. So that that puts us just about to the 35% range. Wow. And as we were talking before we started things about an hour ago, we figured, well, 22,000 might be the number now. Perhaps maybe 23,000, 24,000 votes could be cast in this.
That's huge. That'd be about a 40% voter turnout.
Yeah, between 35 and 40% for sure.
I think the worst year was 2008, where 16% showed up, and that was some of the lowest numbers in the province. So this is fantastic. And in terms of people using social media, in the last election, I think Sam Waddington was the one who primarily used that tool. But that is now basically every candidate, mayor or city council or school board, has used video and used social media to get their message out.
Yeah. Well, and you know, on that same topic, websites. You know, everybody, it seemed, had a really good website with all their platform on it. You know, everybody seems to have stepped up their game this election, which is wonderful to see.
Well, I think this year that's one of the key things, because it was a lot easier to engage with what's going on in our community this year. You mentioned websites, and that is so helpful when you're researching your candidates and being able to see what their platforms, what they stand for, what the issues that they think are the most pressing. Another thing was the debates. We had debates at the Cultural Center, hosted by the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce. Not only could you go to those debates, but you could tune in live, thank you, to Chill TV. But you could tune in live. So for the mayoral debate, we had, you know, between 450, almost 500 people there. But we also had over 600 people tuning in live from their homes. And that's just people tuning in, never mind maybe they were a husband and wife or a few people tuning in there. So the engagement piece there has been a lot easier with technology.
Right, and by the next day, that video had been watched over 3,000 times. So the amount of people actually interested in watching those debates and wanting to see what happened was huge, and that's again, great to see.
I checked the mayoral debate video last night, 8,500 views. Just amazing for the city of Chilliwack. So what an exciting year. So why do we think there was so much engagement? Well, let's talk about a couple of issues here as we wait for the polls to close and for the numbers to come in. One of the issues that was brought up during the debates was Chilliwack's current pay-as-you-go system. If you're not familiar with how Chilliwack operates, they have a long-term plan, and typically they pay as you go and don't incur debt. Let's talk about that. We have a clip actually from one of the candidates. Can we roll that clip there, Robbie?
Thank you very much. Let's talk about our city. So the question I wanted to touch base on, and I'm going to just stretch the parameters of this question, but it was about transportation infrastructure and making cycling and pedestrian activity safer in our community. But to do that, I have chaired the Transportation Committee for the last 3 years and operated within kind of the constraints of how we normally do business. I think we've seen some pretty big steps forward. We've increased transit in a massive way, largest expansion to transit in Chilliwack's history over the last 3 years. We implemented a cycle plan. We're currently implementing a pedestrian plan. All of those things are just coming online, and we're about to see some awesome wins. But a big challenge in our infrastructure and in the way that Chilliwack funds a lot of things is we have this pay-as-you-go, no-debt philosophy. And it is very rare to see that in any other community. And that was one of the things that I touched base on earlier, is to say, when we're the only community doing something, it might be because it is the best thing, and we might be an outlier. Or it might be because lots of other communities have done their homework and decided that these are not the best ways to run a community. And so when we save money before we spend, it means that you, for instance, on certain projects have been paying into the public purse for 10 years before we build the asset that you've been paying for that entire time. And we build it at the end of that with inflated construction costs, with inflated land values, and ends up being a much more expensive project. And you didn't get to use it for the last 10 years. So on a lot of these things, I would like to look at actually spending money up front, paying for it over time, and it will be cheaper, and you get the asset up front. It's how every other community provides services for very good reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was certainly some interesting points, and as you can tell by the applause at the end of his segment there, that resonated with a lot of people, but there definitely is some opposing views out there, wouldn't you guys say?
Absolutely. I think in Chilliwack, what I heard on the street is a great concern over debt. So let's take the city of Vancouver, for example. It has a $1.8 billion liability. The result of that is double the taxes, property taxes for individuals. So what I don't think came out very much in the election is if you don't do pay-as-you-go, what does that actually do for taxes? What does that do for affordability for young people wanting to purchase a home or for seniors wanting to stay in their homes? So I think there was also a very strong opposing view to that. But, you know, it gives the voter a great choice between very different views.
You know, there was an interesting Facebook post from a former mayor of Chilliwack, and I'm sure Clint will be okay with us passing this on. It received a fair amount of discussion and sharing, 31 shares and 60 comments on my meager little Facebook feed. But the crux of it is that if the system is breaking down and infrastructure is falling behind, it requires better planning, not bringing in long-term debt. If the city has moved away from 10-year capital planning, it should move back. So that was Clint's opinion, and I think I agree with that. If you look ahead, you're saving for infrastructure you'll need in 10 years, not starting to save for something you need now, hoping to have it in 10 years. That's the opinion of the pay-as-you-go system right now.
You know, and I think the question is there infrastructure that we don't have that we drastically need or that isn't already planned for and in the works? And unless we had something that was dire, I'm not sure it's worth spending the money and then paying the interest on that loan. You know, one of the things that came out of the debate was the fact that for every $1 million we need to spend at the city, it's about $20 worth of taxes per home. And so if we're talking tens of millions of dollars, is everybody okay with their property taxes going up by, say, $200 or $500 simply to pay interest on a debt long term?
I did a little bit of research. The city of Surrey has a massive debt, and they paid $16 million just in interest last year. So that equates to about $400 in taxes, on property taxes alone.
$1,600.
Yeah, and it actually even goes further. So if you look at some of the debt that some communities in Chilliwack and outside of Chilliwack have amassed, it actually looks like people's children and their children's children will end up paying for past debt and for servicing of that debt.
It seems like it's the consensus that I've heard is that although some of those points that he brought up resonate with people, it's a slippery slope. Where do you start? Where do you stop? Right?
Well, and once it's spent, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's, before we jumped in, you know, we'd have to really look at the project itself and whether it merits the risk that comes with it.
So whoever's elected, that's one of the things that they're going to have to look at is the city's long-term plan. Is it missing anything? Is it something are there things that we need to save up for more vigilantly? Is there anything we're missing right now?
Right.
All right. We have a live reporter in the field, which is pretty cool. Chill TV, live reporter in the field. Mr. Ian Parks, we're going to go to Ian, who is at Preston's restaurant at Sharon Gates gathering tonight.
Thanks, Kirk. My name's Ian Parks. I'm down here at the Coast Hotel in beautiful downtown Chilliwack. And we're obviously here anxiously awaiting, like everybody else in Chilliwack, the election results. And as the group starts to get a little bit bigger here, we expect Mayor Sharon Gates to come on down and make her presence. But of course, it's a little early yet. The election results will be coming in soon. And we're looking forward to meeting who Chilliwack has deemed to be the mayor for the next term. Back over to you, Kirk.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. Yeah, it will be. It's definitely an interesting election. Let's talk again about some of the issues that might be the things that determine the things that people vote on this election. Another issue that was brought up during the debates was a trust issue of the city of Chilliwack, and I think we have a clip for that as well. So let's roll that clip.
What I want to say, first of all, some of you really will not like. I'm going to choose the question, a team without trust isn't really a team, it's just a group of individuals working together. How would you as a leader help your team build the trust that it needs to flourish? I need to tell you that trust is broken on City Council. And I know that Councillor Popov would agree with me, and every councillor that sits here today would agree that trust has been broken on our council. Healthy councils talk about these issues. What has happened is that a serious issue has been referred to the RCMP by our council, and you need to know about that. The issue that is being referred was referred by entire council as trustees of the public purse. They said there would be a complete forensic audit of Sam Waddington's expenses. They also asked for a police investigation not only for his expenses that were incurred in this term, but for his, I know, Boo is right.
Okay, let's be respectful for her time.
Absolutely. I would boo too, but it's rude. So the thing is, thank you.
Okay, let's be respectful of Sharon's time to answer the question,
I do
please.
want to go on to say that in terms, not just in regard to the items that were brought up and the lies that were told to Councillor Stam in a public forum, the council agreed to send this off to forensic audit and to the RCMP for the entire term. This is a serious issue. It is not about overspending. Please do your homework and think about what it took for your council to make that decision and for the union to pull support.
Thank you.
Now, we're talking about this issue tonight not for any other reason than it was a polarizing issue in the debates and definitely on social media, the trust issue that was talked about. Guys, your thoughts?
Well, it definitely was. It was probably the most polarizing part of this election. There's nobody in the middle on this one. You've got one side or the other, and so it really is a matter of, I guess whether you trust that it was an honest look at a misappropriation of expenses, or whether you believe that it was a political tactic in order to, hurt one of the candidates.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things we've seen a lot of debate back and forth on was the statement that outgoing councillor Chuck Stam made on Wednesday, where it was a very clear timeline of what happened up until now, but the comments and the participation in that is either they're saying Chuck is saying that on behalf of incumbent Mayor Gates, or Chuck is saying that just to try and discredit Sam. And I think it is what it is, but it's certainly a very divisive situation at this point in time.
I would agree, very divisive. One of the things that we know is that we don't know everything. Yeah. So right now, there was an in-camera meeting at council, and they discussed the forensic audit, I understand, but we're not exactly sure whether or not it has been referred to the RCMP. I think one of the issues that all individuals in Chilliwack should understand is that misuse of public funds is a serious matter and can actually result in criminal charges such as a breach of trust, which carries with it some serious consequences. So absolutely, the whole issue was polarizing. I know one of the posts I saw on Facebook was the whole notion that, well, if you think that Sam Waddington has misspent money, here's how Sharon Gates has misspent money. Ken managed to avoid that kind of thing, but it did come up in Facebook, and a lot of posting of details around SEPCO, etc. So it's been a lot of slinging on that one.
Well, and due to the nature of the discussion and the fact that it was turned over to an auditor and potentially over to the RCMP, means we don't really have any good discussion around it publicly. Mm-hmm. And so we don't really know all the facts in this case, and I think that's really hurting us as voters when it comes time to make a decision.
Yeah, I guess if there is a silver lining to any of this, it is that it sure created engagement this year. So let's move on from this topic. One of the other hot topics, topics of importance this year that was raised was crime and homelessness. Guys, your thoughts?
Well, this was a big one. If you went to any of the debates, a lot of the questions surrounding or at those events was regarding homeless, and anybody that's driven down our streets has noticed that this is an issue. Now, this is something that exploded on us, a couple of years ago, where it became very prevalent, and we noticed it, and just like every other city in the Lower Mainland, and we had to address it, and we didn't really know how, and the current council has done a wonderful job of that. A lot of the beds that we were working to get aren't going to be opened up till early 2019, and so a lot of the heavy lifting has been done on that. Mm-hmm. Although there's still a lot more to go, and some of the discussion at the debates, particularly the council debate, was one of policing with homeless is a small part of it. What about drug courts? What about that process? And where do we get the funding for all of this?
I'd like to comment a bit on the crime issue, and there were a number of media reports on high crime in Chilliwack, and I think that is on the mind of voters, and I'm predicting that Bud Mercer will do well, just because they're going to look to him to be the point man for dealing with some issues. So, for example, our property crime rate is 45%. Above the provincial rate. So I was actually just in Yarrow this morning, and there's been a spate of break-ins and busted windows. And so if you ask the average Chilliwack resident, are they concerned about crime, I think you would get a resounding yes to that. And they're looking for council to do some tangible things.
Now, as much as we want council to do tangible things, I also think it's really important, and this is my personal opinion, is where does the funding come for that sort of thing? Yeah. It shouldn't be a municipal cost to pay for housing of the homeless. It should be a provincial and a federal. Correct. It's okay if we, put our legs forward to help make it happen, but if we go and spend it, then the provincial or federal are going to say, well, I guess that's taken care of. No need to worry about it. Where are we going to get the funding from? I don't believe that property taxpayers of Chilliwack should be in charge of funding that housing.
No, I would agree. And one of the other hot topics, I'm getting off track a little bit, was increase of property taxes. And we got to be very careful with how we handle this and again, where the funds come from.
Yeah, one of the things that I think Sharon Gates had mentioned is that 32% of the city budget is spent on policing. So, but then there are other people use other statistics saying that that's actually lower than a lot of communities, and yet other people saying it's not how much we're spending, but where we're actually putting those resources. One of the things, and just to back up what Darren has said, is the city has done an extraordinary job in going to BC Housing. So what they are doing is making sure that actually the provincial government are partners in that, and I think there are 275 units or something like that coming on board, but we won't see that for probably a year or so.
Some of the things that were talked about is the statistics of not just crime, because I think there was one council that even had said that statistically crime has been a little bit lower, but it's the visible crime. It's what we see when we're driving down the streets.
Yeah, and that's the stat on that was our 2017 crime was 17% lower than the 2016. We of course don't have 2018 numbers yet, but it is that. It's the visible crime. It's what you see when you drive through downtown. As a business owner, I experienced lots of little petty crime. And so I think that's what it is that the general public is feeling it now, whereas maybe they didn't before when it was larger crimes that didn't get as publicized.
Yeah, and that brings us to another topic that was brought up is being a business owner in Chilliwack. How do we attract business owners? How do we make sure that we're having businesses here that are providing good employment for people that are living in Chilliwack? And that's definitely a factor when it comes to that.
For sure, and attracting new business to Chilliwack is got to be a key for anybody that's running for mayor or city council. We've done a great job as a community. We've got lots of big projects. The Molson one is the most, you can see that when you drive down the highway. It's a huge building, and at full capacity, it's something like 170 full-time jobs. That's 170 families in this city at some point that are paying taxes. And if we talk about building infrastructure in the long term, it's got to be by increasing tax base, not increasing personal property taxes.
And not only just keeping, attracting new business, but even keeping businesses. Luster Industries is a great example of not a big company, but they do employ 60 people, and they were shopping around for places to potentially move, and they found a great piece of land right here in Chilliwack and are building a fabulous looking facility and will be here very long term because of that. 60 jobs are very important.
I think the other thing the city has done an excellent job with, and it's taken some time, is the downtown plan. So right now, and if you look at statistics, and cities struggle with this all over the country, is hundreds of businesses have left the downtown. You have residents that say, I'm not comfortable going downtown, especially after dark, and it becomes this kind of snowball effect. And I think the vision that they've put in place for the downtown plan is going to produce businesses coming back, more people living in the downtown, and actually, because the office I work at is downtown, we're already beginning to see some businesses coming back into downtown, and I think that's a very positive thing and a good thing that the council and the mayor have done.
Well, and the Elgar Brothers project is a big piece of that. There's a large chunk of that downtown land that's going to be amazing. You know, I've seen the renderings of that, and it's quite impressive. You know, once that's down there, I think that businesses are going to want to be down there because there's going to be traffic driven to that area.
The challenge at the outset of that project for the small businesses that move in will be surviving until the critical mass of people living there. And, you know, here's hoping they do. My office is located downtown. I'll have the perfect view of this whole construction project for the next number of years, and I can't wait to see it go up. I'm thrilled about that. And I walk around downtown on a regular basis, and there are times when maybe it's not the most comfortable. I don't get down there at night very often, but you know, as you bring in good things will happen. When I first moved here again 10 years ago and located downtown, it should be noted that there was a great downtown plan that was expected to take 20, 25, or 30 years, and here we are 10 years later and it's happening, and I think that's a credit to those that made it happen.
Yeah, and you know, this kind of leads into another one of the topics that was hot in the debates, which is housing. And where do we get housing? And the word densification was used quite liberally by both mayoral and council candidates. And you know, I think that's a part of that downtown plan as well, or needs to be. You know, as you build businesses down there and people move down there, it's going to just increase the viability of those businesses. And I think that will actually help with our visible homeless problem as well. As we build and grow that downtown, it's going to push, you know, that member society out further.
That's exactly what we need. People living downtown,
Absolutely.
people working downtown, people playing downtown, and wanting to be there. So that's great. And for you mentioned just the time it takes sometimes to put all these things together. And we always, now, I mean, obviously this is the election, so we're focused on the city of Chilliwack, but how many organizations do we have in Chilliwack that are absolutely fantastic, working with the city, working with each other to bring businesses downtown, to do good things for our community? We have our Downtown Business Improvement Association, of course, plug for the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce, doing great things in the city of Chilliwack. And just one of the things we're very blessed with in this city, or have been very blessed with, is having a city, having city staff, having city councilors that are very open, that are very accessible. If you want a meeting with them, you can do that. So being involved with the Chilliwack Chamber of Commerce, we've had many meetings with city councilors, with staff of the city of Chilliwack. As I'm the past president of the chamber, and I remember going to lots of different provincial get-togethers and events where you're talking with people from other municipalities, and we are the envy of many municipalities for what we have here in Chilliwack. So kudos to all those organizations out there doing great things for the community.
Yeah, I think the city also stepped up. Because the land assembly has been key to the downtown issue. So, and you know, they took some criticism for that because some people said, you know, that's the private sector's job. You shouldn't be getting involved in land assembly. But they did. And then I think phone calls went out to developers and they did a bus tour down there, and that got things going. And so, you know, I think there were some things that were done to kind of break that logjam of downtown development, and I think that was one of them.
That's exactly what we need from our city leaders, is people that can spearhead those types of things, see the future, and create a way forward. So let's talk about another issue that came up. How about crime? RCMP versus city police. We have a clip about that. Let's roll the clip.
I think that statistic reflects what a lot of our residents are feeling. They're feeling that their community somehow is taken away from them, and that they're held hostage, I think, a little bit. And those crime rates are real. We have definitely seen a marked difference in public safety in our community, and a huge part of that is because we're a community that has not tied our RCMP staffing levels to our population growth. And historically, that has not served us well. So over this last term, this council has elected to significantly increase our RCMP staffing levels, but we still aren't tying it to growth. And so my worry is that we're going to get back into a situation where we are underfunded for our policing resources. So now is a perfect time, in my opinion, to take a full-scale look at our policing model. We know that a lot of communities across Canada are moving to municipal police, and I believe that this is something that the City of Chilliwack needs to look at much more closely. We did a high-level preliminary review, but nothing like what other communities have done to decide if the RCMP truly is the best model. And if we stick with the RCMP, then we need to significantly increase the resources. It is not the only thing affecting crime, and I will state that openly, but it is a significant piece. And while our RCMP are understaffed, it cripples our ability to do lots of other things, attract new businesses, encourage residential growth in certain neighborhoods, and ultimately, we know that a very small portion of our population are holding 90+ thousand people hostage in their homes in the evenings, and people don't feel safe in their parks. Thank you.
All right. Well, you know what? We're going to put a pause on that issue for the time being. It is 8 o'clock. That means polls are officially closed. And we don't have the numbers yet, but we should have them in how long, Kevin?
We figure about 15 minutes, or 8:15 is when we should start seeing them propagate on the website. The only caveat to that would be if there is lineups. It's been brisk all day, so if there's lineups, then I believe they won't start releasing numbers at the individual polling stations until those lineups are finished. So,
okay, so here it is. This is the hour. Do you guys have any predictions?
Ooh. Well, I'll go first on this, and I'm going to talk about the mayoral portion alone. In 2014, there was about 14,000 votes cast for mayor. There was 3 candidates, the 2 frontrunners being, of course, incumbent Mayor Gates, and running for council now, his name just... Cam Hull, sorry, Cameron. Cameron ran, and Cameron, this was his first opportunity to run for council, and he right for the mayor's chair. So certainly was what one might consider a long shot. Of course, Sharon got 10,200 votes. As we're going to see about 23 or 24,000 votes cast, I think that between the 3 frontrunners for mayor, Popov, Gates, and Waddington, probably 9,000 or 10,000 votes will be what it takes to take the mayor's chair. I don't believe that Sharon has lost 10 or 12% of her supporters and gained 0 at this point in time, even with the increase. So as much as I think that Sam has done a good job and Ken has done a good job with their campaigns, I believe they're going to be spending a little bit more time vote splitting, and I believe that Sharon is going to shoot up the middle and become the mayor for a 4th term.
And you know what, I was going to say, I see that it might play out a little differently. And that being that, as we talked before, there's a major division between Sharon and Sam on this key issue. And I think that they may have alienated themselves to some votes because of this. And, Ken has done a good job. He's kept his head down and just stuck to his plan. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, Ken sneak up the middle and take it tonight. Just for not being involved in the controversy, if you would, as much.
Okay.
I guess my prediction, it's too close to call. We have a couple of situations that I think are going to impact things. So the anti-SOGI 1, 2, 3, I think that is a large group of people. I think that's going to break for Sharon.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've heard interest in change. And so you've heard that a lot, and I was at the Aero polls today, and I've voted there every day, every election, and just seeing a lot more young people and a lot of new families, even out in Aero. So that that really impacts things. The other thing that I heard on the street, which I'm just not sure how it will actually be lived out in terms of voting, is whether there's strategic voting.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of interest in, we don't want to see a certain candidate come in there, so what I'm going to do is vote for the person that I think is most likely to beat that person. So, we've got a lot of different factors playing here, and it'll be very interesting to see the results.
You bring up a good point with the strategic voting. So we've seen obviously an increased voter turnout, but who are the voters? Are they younger, experienced voters who are going to think strategically, or is this, or are these people? To what degree are people voting for a familiar name on the sheet, or voting for just someone that they like?
Well, and something else that Dan brought up here was the school board issue, and that's something that we're not necessarily equipped to discuss at this forum. But there's a lot of people that are going to get going to get out and vote simply because of that issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they do when they get to the polls? Who are they going to vote for when it comes to council or when it comes to mayor? Or do they even vote?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. Perhaps, with the amount of voters we're seeing today, be interesting to see how many actually vote for a mayor or for council.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of wild cards in this election that make it. It's going to be interesting. I'm actually really excited to get the results.
Yeah.
If we look back at the 2014 vote as well, there was 14,800 votes cast, but for the position of mayor, only 13,900 votes cast. So 7.5% of people chose to either not vote for the position of mayor or had a spoiled ballot or whatever. So as much as there's going to be 23 or 24,000 voters, we're not going to see 100% of those voters casting a vote for mayor. Right. The other one, of course, and we've talked about this, is the demographic makeup of the voter itself. Getting the 18 to 29 demographic motivated to say their opinion on social media is easy. To get them to walk down to a polling station and wait in line for 20 minutes to an hour doesn't seem to be as easy. We won't know the demographic breakdown, but if we can see that younger group get out and vote, then I think that's all the better. But I'm not sure that it's there.
I think politically, it's also about whether, for example, the mayoral candidates are able to mobilize and get out the vote. It's one thing to say you're going to do something on Facebook or Instagram. It's another thing to actually get out there, and that's often the difference. The other thing that I wonder about is whether there are, in my mind, 3 lead candidates, and that's only because I believe that most Chilliwack residents think that you should have experience on council before you make it to the mayor's chair. But can they pull enough votes off of out of that to make a difference in a close 3-way race? It'll be very interesting to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, Diane. I think it's too close to call for me personally. I just don't know who our mayor is going to be in the next 15 minutes or 10 minutes or so. Let's talk about councillors.
Okay.
Sure.
Picks for councillors. Who do you guys think is going to win?
Well, I went first, so I'm going to go last this time.
This is a tougher one. We've got 14 people running for 6 seats, and we've got 3 incumbents. And so, as Dan mentioned earlier, I believe, is that being an incumbent gives you an advantage, is that in experience for one, but also in name recognition and honestly poise when it comes to the debates and things like that. I would not be surprised if we saw all 3 incumbents back on council again, which in my opinion would only leave 3 seats for 11 people running. Bud Mercer, I think that he did a great job of engaging voters, and if you watched the debates, he's obviously with his experience, he's got a good handle on the crime situation, which is one of the very key issues. And he's also done a really good job of getting support from both sides of the arguments on social media, if you would. If you look at those arguments, no matter what, Bud seems to be on their list. So I'd take a stab and say that Bud is going to be a new member of our council. Jeff Shields is a name that's recognized in this community. Jeff's been involved forever and with many, many different things. And he's also got a really strong financial background, and again, with one of the key issues being one of funds, city funds, I think that Jeff's got a good shot as well. That last spot, I've been racking my brain, and there's so many good candidates that could fill it. Lisa Morey, for example, I think that she had some very progressive ideas. Deborah Sutar, I think, is a good fit. Harv Westering had some great ideas as well. That last spot, I can't make a guess. One of those 3, I think, would be my guess.
Well, you mentioned the name recognition, so 2 of those. So we've got Louis, and then we've got Cameron, who have run in different elections before. So is name recognition going to be something that?
Well, and Patty McAhonick, if we're down that road as well. Patty's run for council before as well as for MLA. So Patty's got lots of name recognition as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to call that the incumbents will probably get in. And I mean, my experience in running in elections is when you have that many people running, it's very hard to distinguish yourself in that big group of people. So incumbents have a huge advantage, although I did hear that one incumbent might be in trouble, but I don't know if that's true. I think Bud Mercer will do very well. And again, it is linked to a long-standing role in the community.
Yep.
And a lot of times I think that what lands up happening is it's not what you do when a campaign starts.
Yep.
It's what you bring from the community. And Jeff Shields is a perfect example of that. And so they have a $140 million budget. The public is looking for somebody who's got some smarts on the financial end, and I think that that is going to work out well. People who have run, Patty McCahonick has run in a number of elections. Yeah. She might be that sixth spot. We'll have to see, or there could be a dark horse that comes up. Mm-hmm. Louis, for example, did extremely well in the federal election, but oftentimes that doesn't necessarily translate provincial federal to local. And neither the other way. So we'll have to see. I'm with Darren. I'm sort of like stuck on that sixth one. I just don't quite have that firm in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, and for the record, we have 0 of all polls reporting so far, so we know nothing thus far. But my opinion remains the same on the 3 incumbents. I believe that Sue, Chris, and Jason are borderline shoe-ins. I think, that name recognition, Sue's name being first in the alphabet with an A is not a bad thing, and she's a woman, which we haven't really talked about yet. But when we get into the next 3, which will all be new council members, Bud Mercer and Jeff Shields are very high on my list. I believe they've got a good opportunity. Bud impressed a lot of people at the All Candidates Forums and through his use of social media and simply his knowledge. And Jeff Shields maybe didn't perform as well at the All Candidates Forum that the Chamber put on in the downtown BIA. We kept forgetting about the microphone, but he realized that, and he made up for it with his use of social media and his connection with the constituents. After that point. So
Jeff has done a great job on social media and engaging. If you look at Jeff's feeds, it's and that's one of the powers of it. So,
So when we get into number 6, you've got again Louis and Cameron that have run. You've got Patty, who's well known in the community. Certainly Deborah Sutar and Harv Westring. I'm going to throw out a name because we talk about big budgets, and that's Sandy Matthews. Sandy was a business owner, but a big business owner. And he really impressed me at the All Candidates Forums, again, of his knowledge of dealing with multi-million-dollar budgets. Something that maybe, some of the other candidates that would be that number 6 ticker, don't bring to the table. So I'm going to put Sandy's name on the list as well.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm with you guys. It's that 6th seat. I'm not sure. I hear what you're saying. I don't think Jeff Shields did too bad with the microphone. I did hear him when he did talk. Jeff, if you're watching, you did a great job. But that 6th seat, there's so many of the candidates had something to offer for that 6th seat. So that's a tough one.
I think one of the things that Jeff also did well, which some did not do as well, was be specific about his platform. Mm-hmm. So each of his videos had a very clear theme, and he indicated what he would be doing about things. And I think also even one of them kind of landed him in a bit of hot water regarding safe injection sites and how to handle homeless. He talked about entrenched versus individuals who are short-term and indicated he wished to help those entrenched move on. So, I gave him points for specificity, and on that particular video, I looked at a number of comments on that and the debate back and forth. It was very, very engaging.
One of the other things, actually, with Jeff in particular, he got a question at, I think it was the Cultural Centers debate about safe injection sites. Mm-hmm. And his answer was that he didn't have an answer, and he hadn't done any research. And
which I thought was a bad thing to do personally.
Right, and it was tough, and it didn't look good in the crowd. However, he went back and he reflected on it, and he put a social media post out the next day and said, you know what, I didn't know how to answer that last night, and I still don't. However, some other people in the room had very good input, and I'm paraphrasing, but and with a diverse council, he was sure that with the right leadership, they could make all those hard decisions. Mm-hmm. And I think he handled that really well and turned that around. So.
Okay, we're going to go to our live report. Oh, sorry, we're not going to go to our live reporter. We're going to go to a commercial break. Stay tuned, and hopefully we'll have some election results when you get back.
So I've got the cheap pot at home.
But there are some really nice designs.
Educate me.
Tea, white tea, oolong tea, black tea, all come from this plant. This is called Camellia sinensis. There's a larger leaf version.
If you love somebody enough, you follow wherever they go.
Yes, rock and roll guitar. It's my favorite guitar.
Spider Lodge. Watch for it this fall on social media and Chill TV. Your TV, your way. On December 1st, if you can't get to the parade in person, watch it on the Chill TV live stream. Rotary Christmas Parade of Chilliwack, sponsored by the City of Chilliwack and live streamed on chilltv.ca. Your TV, your way.
All right, we are back, and we still do not have results yet, do we, Kevin?
No, no results yet. We'll make sure we call the Chief Electoral Officer and tell her to get her done, right? So.
I'm sure they're doing a great job. Hey, let's go back to that issue. We showed a clip regarding RCMP versus city police. This is definitely an issue that came up, and a number of councillors had talked about it. We saw Sam Waddington talk about it. Guys, your thoughts on RCMP versus city police?
Well, again, it's an issue that there's no middle ground. Some feel very strongly that we should have a municipal police force, and then others feel we should stick with the RCMP. Bud obviously weighed in on this issue, and if anybody would have, I'm sure it's a biased opinion, but a strong opinion about.
He even mentioned it was biased.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of things. We look at the crime issues and we look at the homeless issues, and we blame those on police, and a lot of the things are out of their hands. What we don't look at, and something that Bud did talk about in the debates, was everything we get with the RCMP. And he made the comment, if we need one helicopter, we get three. Yeah. If we need, he mentioned that. And something else that's a reality is liability issues. If we have a municipal police force and a police officer gets injured, we're on the hook.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's at RCMP, Ottawa, that foots the bill with that, and also liability for our citizens. So if somebody should get injured in a police chase or anything, as a municipal police force, we'd be on the hook for that. Mm-hmm. And then there's some other issues. We've got municipal police forces in Abbotsford, in Port Moody, a couple of communities in the Lower Mainland. However, for the most part, every community has done a research study and has found that it doesn't make any sense to move to a municipal police force.
I've heard a few people say that there's concern. We have this great facility in Canada Education Park called the Pacific Region Training Centre. Mm-hmm. If we go to a municipal police force, would the RCMP really want to stick around? We've got the firing range. I think that's a non-issue, in my humble opinion. You look at Regina, Darren, you're from the prairies, you've lived there. We know that Regina has a city police force and has Depot, the training center for RCMP in Canada. So I think that's a non-issue. I'm still not in favor of a municipal police force simply from the cost base, but...
well, and you know what, I think that we've done some preliminary research as a city. I wouldn't be opposed to looking at that research, but we got to have a definite benefit to moving that way in order for us to make that decision.
I don't think the case has been terribly well made for why there should be a municipal force at all. And the cost seems to be quite prohibitive. But at the same time, one of the issues I've always had is the agreements that are struck with the RCMP are sometimes 30 years. And in my opinion, there's not enough accountability there. If we're going to spend 32% of our resources on policing, then there need to be questions about how we're going to use those resources. So, for example, what are the hot spots? Are there specific issues that we should be looking at? I would think property crime better be up there in terms of what we're going to do about those crime statistics. So it's not just about how much you spend, it's about where you spend it. You know, there has also been, you know, arguments that Chilliwack's actually fairly low in terms of the number of police officers that it has. They're going to have to sort that out, because they have added 10 or 14, I think, within the last couple of years. But again, the question is, where do those resources go? Because just because you have police doesn't make you drop in your crime rate. It's what you're doing about it. The other issue that hasn't been talked about a lot is prevention. And, you know, because we're always busy trying to do urgent things, we don't do things that might actually prevent crime in the first place.
So on that topic, you mentioned safe injection sites. That was something that came up in the debates as well. Safe injection sites, some are for it, some say the research supports it. Some candidates say, no, the research doesn't support it. What do you guys think?
It's a tough one. You can see both sides of the argument. I mean, you know, having, especially with fentanyl now being so prevalent, you know, you can see the want and desire to have a place where they can go and they can do it safely and be monitored. And then the other side of that is mental health. So when they are in a place every day, you can get to build a relationship with these folks and help them when they need help. However, if I was a business owner and a safe injection site was planned near my business, I would be vehemently against that. So you can see both sides of it. It's a scary, it's a slippery slope as well.
My own view is that there needs to be more focus on treatment. So if you look at the deaths, the opioid deaths, the majority of them are actually not homeless individuals. They're single males that overdose in their homes. And it cuts across every socioeconomic area. And what we need to do is work with young men in particular to become comfortable to reach out, and then also to make sure that we have treatment facilities, because we basically have detox here and we do not have full treatment in this community yet.
Very good thoughts. I'm going to cut you short if I can for just a sec, because we're going to go to our Ian Parks, who's live in the field with Sharon Gates. Ian, let's go over to you.
Oh, there we are.
Nothing up yet, Sarah? Nothing up yet.
Thanks, Kirk. It's Ian Parks down here at the Coast Hotel. I hope you can hear me. The crowd is quite big right now, obviously supporters of Mayor Sharon Gates, and down here at her headquarters down at downtown Chilliwack. I'm here with Mayor right now. Mayor, how has the election gone so far? Of course, we don't have the results yet. We're anxiously awaiting, but what are your thoughts right now?
Well, of course, I'm anxious to see how the people voted in the city of Chilliwack. I heard that there was an amazing turnout. I think they said that, you know, the last highest was 14,000, and they're saying 20, something like that. So it means that the people of Chilliwack are really engaged, and I'm grateful for that. And I guess we're just waiting now. The election was long. The election is, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad we get to go to bed tonight and have a good sleep.
Definitely, it's an exciting time here in Chilliwack, that's for sure. And
we're using technology we've never used before, and when we lose them, right?
Yeah. Any results yet, Kevin?
Nothing yet. We haven't seen anything thus far, as we heard from site as well, but we're hoping soon.
All right, well, let's talk about some stuff we haven't talked about yet. There are other elections going on. There's our Parks Board and our school trustees. Let's talk about the Parks Board for a second, guys.
Sure.
We've got 3 people running in the city of Chilliwack.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, and so 2 of the candidates are running as a slate, and of course Renwick and Bauer, and their platform is finish what we started, and so they've obviously taken on a big, you know, if you spend any time out at Cultus Lake, you realize there's some big issues that they're trying to tackle out there, and it's been tough. I live at Cultus Lake, and I've been you know, kind of living through this. And if you can see the vision of those 2 gentlemen you know, I feel pretty strongly they're going to get reelected in that role, and I, you know, I think I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. I back up the current incumbents coming in. That being said, there are big issues, and one of the issues is traffic. Mm-hmm. So I live in Yarrow, right along the Vetter Mountain Road, and in the summer I just watch the traffic. So, you know, there are days, Sunday afternoons in particular, where these poor people coming from Stillwood Camp and coming out of the campground are going to take an hour to 2 hours to get from Teapot Hill right down to the Vetter Mountain Road. So hopefully the roundabout there is going to help, but traffic is a huge issue, and I think the voters there will be looking for that to be addressed.
Well, and you know, traffic is they're coming to and from Cultus Lake. It's not a Parks Board issue per se, though. It's you can't blame anybody for wanting to go there and spend an evening or a weekend, because it's a beautiful place to be.
I did today.
There you go. You know, parking is one of the big issues, the hot topic issues. I know Quigley has wanted to not charge residents for parking, and then wanted to find a way to not charge Chilliwack residents for parking as well, which, being that it's in a provincial park, is not going to be allowed.
Yeah, I just don't see how he can. I don't see how he can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I like the idea. I'd love to go there and not have to pay for parking, but how do you police that? So everyone's going to have a special Chilliwack resident parking pass. I don't know. It seems like not enough of a cookie to dethrone one of the previous members of the Parks Board.
And how does that affect the budget? I mean, there's a budget for the Parks Board, and part of that budget is made up from parking. So that certainly would be an effect there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to school trustees. What an interesting ride that has been. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I think this is the most controversial school board election in, I don't know, 50 years, and maybe ever. You have two definitive factions, and you know, one of the things that I find interesting is that Chilliwack is generally not a slate kind of a community, but there is an anti-SOGI slate running. Barry Neufeld, of course, is on that, as well as a number of other candidates. And then there is, you know, another, they're not per se a slate, but a group of people that have been recommended as progressive. So you've got that kind of duking it out. What I was very disappointed in is that there were no real public forums beyond. There was one at John Kelvin, and then I think Ryder Lake school trustees were included in that. But it used to be that DPAC or the CTA would run at least 2 public forums, and that didn't happen. So I think that didn't do the voter any favors in terms of actually looking at what was going on there. I predict the incumbents will get in, so there's 3 there, and the rest I really can't say what the other 4 would be.
Well, and you mentioned slates, and so it's going to be interesting to see is if the slates get in themselves, or whether there's individuals from those, and what really makes up that school board. You know, if you get a 50-50 mix on there, that's going to be a stalemate. I
think the most important piece of the for SOGI or anti-SOGI, the anti-SOGI slate is an example, which is Heather, Kathy, Barry, Irma, and Daryl, is they really don't have any say in the curriculum. I mean, this is not to my understanding, this is not an issue that they could actually make something happen on without taking it to the provincial government. So what is the real point otherwise, other than this is my personal view?
Right.
And that's the challenge I have with electing an anti-SOGI school board that has no say in the curriculum anyway. Well,
and Paul McManus made some comments the other day about how the anti-SOGI would not be allowed in the schools. And, you know, so that's obviously a very hot topic as well. And if that's the case, how effective can they be at their jobs as a school board if they're not allowed in? It's not a mandatory part of the job, however. You'd think it would be a part of it. No, you'd have a better...
Absolutely. School trustees, what normally happens is they get schools, around 6 or 7 schools that they should be attending PAC events and other events and represent the interests of those schools. So their presence in the schools is very important. I'm not sure I agree with Paul McManus on his assessment, but you know, this really has been hotly contested, and you know, I find it interesting that not so much in Abbotsford. and not so much in School District 78 Agassiz. So very interesting, and it'll be, I think the unions, CTA and CUPE also had their list, which did not include, I think, the anti-SOGI group. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think the faith-based community, some are, that's the alignment there, and they're very disturbed at what they see as resources, even if it's not curriculum. And then I think some people are concerned that depends on how the school board is, what is the Minister of Education going to do if there's more controversy afterwards in our efforts to limit that. So it'll be a very interesting time for the school board.
Absolutely. So let's talk about something. Let's talk about, I mean, we have so many people running for all these positions. Let's talk about that in general. I had a conversation with a gentleman this morning up at Cultus Lake, actually. We were talking about the candidates for city council, what that means. I mean, obviously they do get some sort of monetary compensation for being on city council, but what does that mean for their lives?
Well, it's as you've seen this last council, they put a lot of effort in. There's many times those meetings run past midnight on a Tuesday, and they need to be involved. I look at Jason Lump, for example. He owns a business, and not only is he on city council, but he's on the Fraser Valley Regional District Board and many other boards. And I don't know how he does it, and with a family, right?
Yeah. And not just the boards, but even with people, right? You imagine you're in a public position. You go out anywhere, whether it's with your family or whether anywhere in Chilliwack. Really, you're always on. You're always working.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You would know.
Absolutely.
You did a few years of that, yes.
Number one, my sense of most everybody who runs is they're running for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And even if you're diametrically opposed to their view, they are there for the right reasons. You kind of get hooked on it because you get to know the community. I think one of the most rewarding things is that you help individuals out. And you have something tangible in terms of helping an individual citizen with a particular issue.
Yeah.
And most people spend, I would say, 20 hours a week over and above their jobs, their family time to represent the community, and so I'm grateful to them. And I know that politicians don't necessarily rank high in terms of people's respect sometimes, but I think personally, I'm very pleased with what I've seen in terms of the quality of candidates, and very, very pleased at them putting their name forward, because they could be doing a lot of other things with their time.
And they're certainly not doing it for the compensation at all.
No.
It's a part-time job with less than part-time pay in the grand scheme of things. And you take a guy like Chuck Stamm, who has spent, what was it, 19 years on council. He said at the end of the meeting on Tuesday night that when he started this process, he had 2 less kids. And now they're 14, 17 years old. I mean, that has to be tough on a family. And he's got 3 kids in his family. That has to be tough on a family with newborns, especially. Just the amount of time that he has to put in, and he's running a business at the same time. So,
But what a legacy you leave behind when you're helping out the community and really serving the community in those capacities. That's for sure. Kevin?
Nothing
yet.
Sorry. Yeah.
We certainly expected some results.
Yeah, we were told in preparation for this that it should be pretty fast. 15 minutes or 8:15 is what we expected to see. However, because of the significant increase in the number of voters this year, we're up about 8,000 voters, so likely all said and done. If there was a lineup at 8 o'clock, they would cut the lineup off, but everybody gets to go through. So likely what the problem is there may be people still voting as we speak.
Great.
Once everything happens, it is going to be fast. That's what we're told. It's just not fast enough for us right now.
So long lineups. Is there equipment malfunction? Because I know that one of the scanners was down at one of the stations.
Oh, okay. I have no idea, Kirk. That's
right.
a really good question. You can see on the screen we've got a picture. I believe that was from a social media post from Wednesday at City Hall. We had 1,500 people show up which was actually below what Carol Friesen expected. She was anticipating more like 2,000 to show up on Wednesday. But in that case, some people were waiting for 2 hours in line, and but you know, we got everybody through. That was good.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the candidates for just a second. You mentioned that we all discussed how they deserve our respect, absolutely, for putting themselves out there. If this was a job interview, this has to be about the worst job interview you could actually have. You've got people checking into your whole life and checking into some other things. So, Diane, why don't you tell us a little bit about that, because you've experienced this before.
Yeah, you do have to be comfortable with people looking at every aspect of your life. You know, when I ran, there was I had some controversy because somebody felt I was related to somebody who they felt didn't have a high moral character, and I had to explain to them I wasn't. So, so you really do suspend sort of a private life, but I think what you have to do is say that you're hooked on the community, and so you're going to be out there 2, 3, 4 times a week at everything from social functions to cultural to economic, and the public expects you to be out there representing them. And I think you have to know what you sign up for. And sometimes I think maybe people don't kind of underestimate what the challenges are. The other thing is that you do see a variation. Some people will spend many hours a week, and others will spend a bit less. It does really depend. The other thing that's really important is the committee work. I think that a strong part of what gets done is in those committees. So if you're a transportation committee, or you sit on SEPCO, or you do other things, that's where the real sleeves rolled up kind of work occurs, and then it comes up through council. That's what makes council and mayor effective.
You know, one of the things we talked about earlier was social media during the election itself, and how powerful it was there. And something that you know, all of our city councilor and mayor have to deal with now, they didn't have to deal with, say, 10 years ago, is that social media interaction. So as a public person with a social media account, they can always reach you.
Yeah.
And I know that that must be a challenge. You know, it's tough to face criticism like that. But in the end, these people are our friends and neighbors that are doing this job. And I think there's some pretty harsh criticism that comes across in social media. And that's something that I don't think everybody is necessarily prepared for when taking on the role, or when vying for the role, that they're going to be this accessible.
Yeah, absolutely.
The anonymity that comes with social media as well allows people to be a lot harsher than they would to your face. You know, where you may not really nitpick about something to a person face to face, you will on social media, whether it's you. And of course, if you're an anonymous person, it's completely different. I mean, you look at what Mayor Gates went through, where she withdrew completely from most social media up until this election run started, because, you know, she was just having a run-in with a lot of people that didn't like her, plain and simple. Thought that we're blaming every little thing that went wrong, whether it was downtown or at Cultus Lake, on her, and it just got to her.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned anonymity, and I just remember during the debates, even going through the questions that were coming in, and some of the questions that weren't really even questions, just comments and harsh words for specific candidates. You know, as we sort of mature in this world of social media, I'm really hoping that everyone can understand that these are real people. Although you may not agree with them, they do deserve your respect, and you're not anonymous. We can see your picture for the most part. So it's one thing to be brave, but it's another thing to disrespect people who are really putting their lives forward to make your life better. So with that, I think we're going to cut to a commercial, and we'll be back, and hopefully we'll have some results for you.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I've got the cheap pot at home.
But there are some really nice designs.
Educate me.
Tea, white tea, oolong tea, black tea, all come from this plant. This is called Camellia sinensis. There's a larger leaf version.
If you love somebody enough, you follow wherever they go.
Yes, rock and roll guitar. It's my favorite guitar.
Spider Lodge. Watch for it this fall on social media and Chill TV. Your TV, your way. On December 1st, if you can't get to the parade in person, watch it on the Chill TV live stream. Rotary Christmas Parade of Chilliwack, sponsored by the City of Chilliwack and live streamed on chilltv.ca. Your TV, your way.
And we're back without results.
No news is good news, Kirk. Oh no, wait, that's not what we're looking for.
Well, we do anticipate results really any second now. So let's talk about a couple other issues that were hot topics in the debates. Transportation is one that came up.
Yeah, transportation came up. Green transportation was a part of that. Nothing earth-shattering, I guess, when it comes to the answers. Some bold ideas. There was a talk of rail service north to south, is what I understand. Apparently, there's some lines there, but it's been a feasibility study's been done, and it doesn't seem to make sense. Expansion of bus routes, was another one of those topics, and of course, bike lanes, and that's something that I'm a bit of a cycler, and so seeing some bike lanes come up is actually exciting for me because you're not going to get hit by mirrors and run off the road. The overpass across the highway is a big part of that, and that's something that's already, coming. One of the candidates talked about electric charging stations, and the City of Chilliwack has taken a lead with that, and they have some charging stations.
At City Hall.
At City Hall, yeah. And so there's, there was a couple different ideas there, and as we go from being a small rural city to a larger urban city, these are the growing pains that we're going to have. And finding a way to approach them, maybe not for this election, but upcoming election is going to be a big part of it.
So I want to talk about bike lanes for just a minute.
Oh, no.
And I'm not against bike lanes. I love riding my bike. I love the Vetter Trail, and I think that the cantilever on the train bridge over the number one highway is fantastic. But the dilemma we have is I think a lot of people are pushing bike lanes as a mode of transportation to get from point A to point B, which will never work for me. I wear one of these, a tie, every day that I go to work, and I don't think...
lots of people that ride bikes wear ties, though, Kevin.
Well, okay, but riding a bike from Garrison to Five Corners every day and then having to change and do my job and then change back it. That's just not going to work for me. I'm not going to be that green transportation person.
I did that. Kevin, I rode
that?
from Cultus out to Evans Road and Yale.
Once or more than once?
I did it, yeah, many times, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, well, you know, I guess you're different than me, but I also need a vehicle when I travel around and do my job. So where's the car going to be when I get there?
Yeah, and
that's the problem with bike lanes for me.
And just to build on that, I think one of the things that I've noticed about Chilliwack, even in the last few years, is gridlock. Gridlock in the middle of the day, which just was basically unheard of. So, you know, particular areas that I think are very concerning is there's more building going up at Promontory, and, you know, it's basically 2 ways in and out of there, and that continues to be a challenge. And Vetter, so if you look at the traffic counts on Vetter, it has some of the highest traffic counts in the region right along that Vetter corridor. And you know, not a huge amount of opportunity. They're, you know, I believe they're working on expanding that, but just providing the infrastructure for vehicles to move efficiently is something else. I think one of the other things that happens with transit is it's so expensive. And you also have to account for the fact that BC Transit is involved in that because it's a shared, usually it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in terms of the cost sharing, and that does have an impact. My understanding, just looking at the statistics, is that the transit numbers have grown quite nicely, and you actually have to work with the public to get them to become comfortable with busing, with taking public transit. You know, my daughter lives in Toronto, and, you know, busing in the subway, that's just how most people are moved. And we still are very much of a car culture here in Chilliwack.
And I think we just don't have the infrastructure to get there. And I'll use an example of mine. I love the SkyTrain in Vancouver. I'm into Vancouver for meetings on a regular basis, and I drive to Scott Road Station where it costs me $3, and I buy a pass, and then I walk from there. And, you know, but we're not going to get to a position where we could have that much coverage, unfortunately, anytime soon, or we could with a lot of money spent, but I don't see the value in it, and I don't see it being used effectively.
When you compare us to cities, cities in general, larger cities, I mean, they're a lot more dense than we are, right? So you know, I noticed that, you know, whenever you go into, like you mentioned, Vancouver, really any major city, I mean, everything you need is usually within a couple of blocks. You can buy food, you can buy clothes, you can do everything. Your coffee shop's there, where in Chilliwack, unless you live maybe right downtown, that's just simply not the case.
Yeah, and you know, if you look at geographically, Chilliwack is a large footprint for our population, and so to service all those with public transit would be a very expensive endeavor. You know, touching on the infrastructure, particularly Promontory Road and then on Vetter, the plans are there, and they're actually starting to see some of the work happen now. So it's going to be twinned up Press Road up onto Promontory, as well as on Promontory Road. And then Vetter's going to be 2 lanes from Keith Wilson to Watson. And trust me, I come in that road every day, and so having that twin is going to alleviate a lot of that congestion.
So looking at sort of past things, did the city make a mistake in not creating a 4-lane bridge over the Vetter River?
Well, so if you made a 4-lane bridge over the Vetter River, now you need 4 lanes all the way out to Yarrow or Cultus, and that's a huge endeavor. And honestly, you know, living at the lake and driving that road every day, just that roundabout and bridge has alleviated so much of the traffic. And then having that second roundabout, I think, is going to take care of the majority of that. So I don't think they made a mistake. And really, the heavy traffic loads on that road are 2 months a year. And so would we build massive infrastructure for 2 months of heavy traffic?
2 months a year and 2 days of the week in those 2 months as well.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, I think the priority should be Vetter and Promontory. I mean, we just really have to look at and getting that done, because the traffic there, it demands it. And I think the build out with Promontory is 10,000, and that's, you know, you're just going to create the availability of land is going to drive that. I don't think you're going to see the growth in Yarrow necessarily because of the sewer systems, and we have a vast district. I mean, there's Greendale, there's Yarrow, there's Rosedale, but I think that corridor that we're seeing. The other thing that I think have to put a lot of attention to is if we're going to build downtown and we're going to have more densification there and more people living there, good public transit downtown is going to be absolutely an absolute priority.
Mm-hmm. I think with the transit, with infrastructure, we're talking about the twinning of roads. We mentioned maybe, should they have made the bridge bigger? I think what we have to realize as a community is we have some very talented and very good city staff that are planners with this infrastructure. I remember sitting down specifically with a planner regarding infrastructure, and we were discussing some of the things that always come up, some of the stuff that you mentioned specifically, and he said, okay, if we do that, then all that does is move the bottleneck here. Right. If we do this, all that does is move the bottleneck here. So there's a lot of forethought, there's a lot of planning that goes into what we see. It's not just someone waking up one day saying, hey, it should be a good idea to twin this road.
Well, all this information is available in the official community plan, which is available on the City of Chilliwack website. It's a living document. They change it as they need, and I'm sure when they built this document, they were looking at some of this infrastructure that would be needed in, say, 20 years, but due to our population growth, it's shrunk. And we're lucky that we have a city that is abided by that and done it quicker as it needed it. So, if you want that information, it's out there, and it's great to inform yourself about what, especially if you're concerned about a specific region of the city, to inform yourself what's actually planned to go there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I'm hoping we have some results, Kevin.
No, nothing. It still says result status waiting for polls to close. Now, I would expect, based on some of the lineup plans, that we hopefully will see this work itself out in the next very few minutes, but we've been saying that for about 20 minutes now already. So nothing new to report, Kirk.
All right. Well, let's recap a couple things here. What do we think? We talked about a few issues. What do we think are going to be the factors, the biggest impact on this election, if you could rate them?
Crime and homeless, I think, is going to be number one.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that the Sam Waddington and Sharon Gates, whatever you want to call that, discussion is it's so polarizing. You get people that are rabidly supporting on either side of that. It's going to sway voters one way or another as well. And I think those are the two key issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think housing affordability is becoming an issue for the community, and so I think it's more than even homelessness. It's related to how are we going to have housing for the full continuum of the population. So for new people who want to get out there and actually afford a house, and Chilliwack is still in the range. They're much more affordable than Vancouver, but becoming less affordable, and I think that's one issue. Then you have issue the fastest growing population in our community is going to be 65 to 75-year-olds. Mm-hmm. So seniors housing, what does that mean? I think there's a huge need for more seniors housing, and so the whole issue, it's definitely not as big as Vancouver, but I think housing along that continuum is going to be a significant issue.
Mm-hmm.
Sam made a really good statement on, I can't remember which debate it was, whether it was the Cultural Center debate or the Chamber of Commerce and BIA debate, about young people affording houses, and he made the statement, something along the lines of, they can still afford it, but it's not going to look like, what you think it might look like. So your first home might not be a big single-family home. It might be a condo. It might be a townhouse. And he said, your patio might be at the bar down the street. Your backyard might be the park down the street. You just need to change your view of what home ownership is.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Vancouver. What does $500,000 get you in Vancouver?
Nothing.
It doesn't get you much, right?
Yeah.
$500,000 in Chilliwack still gets you a nice family home.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, in today's terms, $500,000 is an affordable family home.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at the fact that we are still the most affordable city in the Fraser Valley, not only in house prices, but in property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that property taxes is a big part of that. This election outcome could potentially determine whether those property taxes stay as low as they have been.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you were to add $100 a month to a lot of people's mortgage or annual costs, that will bust a number of people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Based on how easy it is to get debt and easy it is to get a sizable amount of debt. So every penny counts at the end of the day, and fiscal conservatism is extremely important. So
and for every family that's struggling to get into a house, there's also families, there's 40,000 homes in Chilliwack. There's 40,000 families or individuals that have realized this increase in property value along the way, which is actually helped their net spending and worth.
I think there's a big expectation on the homelessness issue as well. And one thing I've noticed about Chilliwack residents is that they're a very compassionate group of people. But I was at a meeting, a homelessness meeting, and a leading business person, and I agree with him. He said, you know, we're patient, but we've got an issue here that has to get dealt with. You know, I was talking to somebody who actually has purchased a home by Hazel Park, and said, I can't send my kid out there because there are needles, there are people doing drug deals out there, and here I've invested all my money in this home, and something better get done. And they said, I'm a compassionate person. I'm not a person who thinks that we should just kick them out of the community, but something tangible better get done so that the visible homelessness issue is dealt with. And I think that's one of also not only the highest demand, but also one of the most complex issues because it relates to addiction, to mental health, and to a range of other issues that feed into how a person landed up homeless.
Absolutely, I agree with you because it's those visible things that we all see in the community that cause us to go, whatever we're doing now is not working. So a lot of people say, well, let's throw that out, and let's go to a municipal police force. Let's go and do it this way, and let's look at other communities that maybe they haven't handled the homeless situation the right way, and let's do it that way because we just want something done, and we want something done now.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, there was a lot of talk about change during this election, and there's some danger in changing midstream what our plan is, and we've got a plan right now when it comes to homeless about getting beds, and there's more that needs to be done, but drastically changing that right now might take us backward rather than forward.
Here's one of the polarizing things that came up. We have a video clip regarding injection sites, which we had discussed just briefly, but let's roll that clip, and that's one of the things that was talked about.
My favorite subject, injection sites. No, thank you. It doesn't work. We can look at that all over the place. It just brings crime to the area. People use drugs outside. They deal drugs outside. Yeah, it may help them if they OD inside. They've got help right away. But like the government says, you know, if you want to get high, bring a friend. You got somebody to watch out for you. So that would be a lot cheaper. An injection site, if you don't know, is $400,000 to start up. $500,000 a year to run. And me personally, I don't want that to come out of anybody's pocket. I'd like to see all that money, if we're going to do this, put the money towards our kids. I'd like to see the Target store out at the mall, bring that up, get in laser tag, jungle gym, trampoline park, rock climbing walls, anything for the kids to come and do for free from the age of 7 to 17, when they're, instead of being out on the street in amongst the drugs and the crime, it gives them something to do after school, weekends, early evenings, anything. Like I say, it's about the kids, and they are our future. And if we can get them away from the drugs and the crime, maybe it'll be better for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic in this election. Well, with us right now, we have one more person on the panel. We're very pleased to welcome former MLA for 16 years, Mr. Barry Penner. Barry's going to tell us a little bit about the process of election.
Well, of course, we're anxiously awaiting the results, but I can tell you I'm not feeling as anxious as the candidates are.
Yeah, for sure.
And as anxious as all of us here in the studio are for the results. I know from firsthand experience just how stressful it is for everybody that's worked in the campaigns, but nobody's more stressed than the candidates. Waiting for the results, it is really, it's all about the next few moments when the results come in. All the work that you've put in, all the contributions you gathered up from loyal supporters, you put your best foot forward, you put your ideas forward, and now there's nothing to do but wait. And I found that was the most difficult time because there really is nothing else to do. I remember on election days going for a run. It's the only thing I could do because we really weren't allowed to campaign anymore. The campaign manager wanted you out of the office, and because I was just a stress ball at that point. So going for a run was about the best thing you could do because there was nothing else you can do. So I really feel for the candidates at this point, waiting for the results. And I was at Evergreen Hall late this afternoon to vote. The lineup out the door into the parking lot So I have to think that's what's contributing to the delay here. The results won't come in at those polling stations until the votes are cast. So everyone who showed up to vote will be given that opportunity, I hope, to cast their ballot before the doors are locked. So that's what we're waiting for, is for the democratic process to run its course.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be a little bit later than usual in this election.
And we had 1,700 votes cast between 6 and 7 p.m. So assuming that that's the number of votes that were cast, we don't know what's happening between 7 and 8, but there could have been a 45-minute backlog waiting.
Well, we did just see marijuana legalized.
Yeah.
On the 17th.
I thought we told that joke already.
Perhaps that's playing a role here. Maybe there's some people that, whoops, I forgot, or whoops, I'm a little bit late. Hopefully not.
Possibly complicating matters was a serious vehicle accident on Vetter Road late this afternoon. It tied up traffic. Traffic was diverted off of Vetter Road for a while, both north and southbound. Yeah. So other arteries like Watson and Tyson and Evans Road got a lot more traffic as people were trying to get to the polling stations in those areas, and that maybe just further delayed people's arrival at the polling station, and then that's again further delaying the start of the count, because those people have to be given a chance to vote if they showed up before 8 p.m. at the polling station.
Absolutely. Kevin, you have results, right?
0 of 19 polling machines are reporting thus far, Kirk.
Well, it's interesting TV. That's for sure.
Hopefully it's not 1981 all over again.
Yeah.
Well, there was a comment on Facebook today that somebody read on the City of Chilliwack website that results will be available Monday at 4:30, and I duly corrected, saying no, they would be available shortly after 8 o'clock once everything closes up. Maybe I was wrong after all, and 4:30 Monday is the plan. But again, there's just nothing showing up at this point in time on the website. I know we could endeavor to call Carol Friesen, but I don't think she's going to be picking up the phone at this point in time. She might be a little bit busy, and that's a hard job as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Being that unbiased individual that when it comes to that. So
we should mention also, with the results that we will hopefully see any second now. We should mention that they are preliminary and they are not official. Right. The official results will be confirmed not later than 4 p.m. on Wednesday, October 24th. That's
so what Carol told me, this is the third or fourth election using the electronic voting machines, and everything that they're going to provide to us to eventually is considered preliminary. They then go through and check and recheck. They have never once had to correct even one ballot. It's always been 100% accurate. So again, our caveat is that this is in fact preliminary, but we don't expect them to change once they actually make it in, whenever that might be.
Well, guys, we've talked about a lot of issues. We've ranked some issues.
Barry, what do you see as the key issues in this election? Are you comfortable answering that or giving your opinion on that?
I think a big undercurrent is crime. I think there's serious frustration that typical homeowners and taxpayers are feeling. Of course, crime is a complicated issue, but when something is stolen from your garage or your child's bicycle is taken, your emotions are not complicated. You're upset. So I think that looms large. There's a limited number of things that council can do other than provide perhaps more policing resources. Which granted is I guess a reactionary, you're reacting to a problem, but I think the public is expecting a strong reaction to the increase in crime that we've witnessed in the Fraser Valley. Now it dropped 1 year from the previous, but it's still at significant levels. Even this afternoon, on my way to the polling station, I saw somebody dragging a table saw across the street. It appeared it had just been freed from somebody else's garage. I did call the police and sent them photographs that I took of this individual taking somebody else's power saw from their garage. But it's unfortunate. It's throughout the British Columbia. It's not just Chilliwack. I see comments on Facebook. It's about Chilliwack. It's happening here. It's serious, but it isn't just us. You see these similar comments and problems and frustrations from Kelowna to Victoria to Prince George.
Yeah.
But we have, we have more than our fair share. So the property crime rate here is 45% higher than the provincial average. So, and, some people look at it as a victimless crime. It isn't. These individuals, I was talking to somebody in Yarrow that just been broken into, and they said there's a whole group of businesses broken into, and they're worried about the personal safety.
As important as this is,
we have
and as
some
important as you are,
results, yeah.
we have some preliminary results. Yeah, Kevin, why don't you give us the news?
We do have one of 19 polling machines reporting,
okay.
And you can see them on the screen, everybody, but Ken Popov is in the lead at this point in time with 590 votes, Sam Waddington 445, Sharon Gates at 319. And
poll is that?
I can check that in just a minute. We'll just get into, you see the councillor there, of course, Jason Lum, Chris Clute, and Sue Attrell, the three incumbents, are in the top 6 at this point in time, with Bud Mercer, Jeff Shields, and Louis DeJager as our, and that is Chilliwack Middle School poll number 1. Okay. So that would be downtown. That's a downtown-based polling machine at this point in time that's reporting. On the Parks Board, Darcy Bauer and David Renwick, it's a tight race there. And school trustees, Dan Coulter, Willow, Barry Neufeld has a sizable number of votes in 3rd place. Heather Moz, David Swanky, Jared Mumford, and Kelly Janvaux being the top 7 at this point in time.
As we mentioned, running on slates, it doesn't seem like those votes have followed that slate per se.
No, certainly Mr. Neufeld was on the slate, but he's the only one that I believe on the Sogi slate sorry?
Anti-Sogi.
Anti-Sogi slate is so far. So I'm sure we'll start to see a lot of this trickle in pretty quick now as we get more of these results.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. So CMS number 1. Has reported, and
out of curiosity, do they indicate how many votes were cast at that polling station?
Why, yes, Barry, they do.
Well, do tell.
Yeah, 1,459 ballots were cast in this case, 1,455, so there was 4 non-votes for the purpose of mayor. 1,455 votes cast for mayor.
So, Mr. Statistics over here, can you tell us how many votes were sent in from that station in the 2014 election?
Why, yes, I can. I just need to just dig that up. So if you talk about something else, I'll dig that information up for you in seconds.
Now while he's talking about that, one of the things that's been mentioned a couple times about police force, and one of the hot phrases, if you would, during this election was boots on the ground, more boots on the ground. And the reality of police officers is that they come at an expense. And so for every single police officer we need to add, it's $168,000 by the time you pay the wages, the benefits, and the support staff in order to work with that police officer. So if we were to say add 10 police officers, that's $1.7 million. That's a $40, give or take, increase in every single citizen's property taxes per year, and that's 10 extra officers. It definitely is a part of the solution when it comes to policing, but it is not the solution. If we flood the streets with police officers, but without the support that they need in terms of the courts and everything else, one of the things Bud talked about during the debate was the cycle of a drug addict and somebody that's homeless. And they said if they get arrested for a property crime, for example, so they're committing a property crime in order to fuel a drug habit, if they're arrested for that and then processed, they'll be released within 24 hours, and within that 24 hours, they'll be back committing offenses.
Okay, so, I'm gonna cut in again because I've got 2 things and then an update. First of all, Chilliwack Middle School has reported now both of their polls, a total of 3,401 votes cast at CMS compared to about 2,272 4 years ago, so it's a significant increase. And with 2 of those polls reporting now, Ken Popov remains in the lead at 1,339 votes, Sam Waddington at 1,075, so that's a pretty sizable lead. Again, it's a downtown polling station, and Sharon Gates at 758. We're seeing in the councillor run, again, our 3 incumbents, Lum, Clute, and Attrell in the top three. In the top five. Bud Mercer, Jeff Shields, and Harv Westring as rounding out 3, 4, and 6 respectively. Louis DeJager, Terry Cross are kind of up there, but Louis DeJager is only 40 votes off the pace to securing a seat. So
him and Harv,
yeah.
in that last
Yeah. So the numbers are, here we are now. We're up to 4 polling stations reporting.
Exciting,
things are getting exciting again. Ken has actually increased his lead. He is now about 450 votes ahead of Sam Waddington. Sharon Gates did pick up a number of votes at 1994 for Ken, 1544 for Sam, and 1215 for Sharon. Again, our incumbents and the councillors are doing well. Jason Lum, Chris Clute in spot 1 and 2, Bud Mercer, Jeff Shields in spots 3 and 4, Sue Attrell, now Louis DeJager.
We saw a switch again
Yeah,
there.
so points 6 and 7, there's only a 32 vote swing between those two right now, between Louis and Harv, and then it's almost 400 votes difference to number 8, which is currently Terry Cross. So this will probably, I mean, obviously, Mr. Lum is well ahead of the pack. Now, again, that's only 4 out of 19 polls that are reporting, so that is fairly significant. The polls that are now reporting, those other 2 polls that came in were Evergreen Hall 1 and 2. So again, we've got 4 downtown polls, Chilliwack Middle School number 1 and 2, and Evergreen Hall number 1 and 2. There's still 2 more polls to show up from Evergreen Hall, and then we'll start to see, I guess we'll start moving south from there. I'm seeing the polling list, and it's the top 4 are the ones that have reported. I wonder if they'll actually report in that order or not. I don't know. We'll sort of find out as this works its way through. So still 4 out of 19 reporting. Ken Popov with a pretty sizable lead at this point in time of about 450 votes.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
We go back to what we were thinking, and the too close to call, the one or the other. Very interesting to see how this comes in, but it's not over yet. There's still lots of polls that need to report.
Well, and these are downtown polls, and Ken is a downtown business owner and lives in that area, and so you wonder if that doesn't play into it to some degree. But it will be interesting to see how it plays out when the rest of the polling stations come through.
Yeah, what I felt, he ran a very strong video about his history in establishing his company, and what you do have to say about Ken is what you see is what you get. So when he talks about not being a person who wants to take the glory, but he just wants to get the job done and roll up his sleeves, that actually is how he behaves. I've worked with him on the Chilliwack Healthier Communities Committee with 40 other organizations, and his interest is in making a difference, and so he's not that concerned about whether he's the person speaking. He's more, what are we doing, and here are the tangible things that need to get done, and he did that right up to the last day. He was, we were talking about a project, and he said, well, let's get it in, let's get it done, and so you've got to respect him for being that kind of a leader.
Well, one of the things Ken talked about during his campaign was collaboration, and that was actually a big part of it. When you look at the incumbent city councilors, they all threw their support behind Ken in his decision to run for mayor, and you wonder if it isn't that kind of leadership where it's not about fame or glory, it's about doing what's best for this city. And I know Ken, and he's done that for the last many years in every facet that you can imagine. He's very, very involved in this city.
And we have another update, 5 polls reporting another of the Evergreen Hall number 3. So we see that, again, Ken is really, he's creating a bit more of a lead now, 2,403 votes. He had, I believe it was 1,994, so he picked up another 400 votes, and Sam Waddington picked up about 375, somewhere in there. So clearly Ken is starting to build a bit of a lead at this point in time. In the councillor run, we're seeing Louis and Harv kind of flip-flop back and forth. So Louis DeJager is in spot number 6 at this point in time. And Harv Westring is about 50 votes behind with 2,074. And in number 8, Terry Cross, who was a new bidder for a council seat at 1,707. So there's 365 votes between number 7 and 8. So that could be kind of the line drawn in the sand, that number 6 spot you know, you just never know where it's going to go. Darren, we talked before the election that it was assumed, based on number of voters, that about 6,500 votes.
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring that up.
Yeah.
What
Go
the
ahead.
baseline was. So, yeah, so, you know, last in the 2014 election, what was the least number of votes that a councillor had and still made it on?
Well, that's a really good question.
I'm sure you have the answer.
I know I have that answer. I'm going to say it was about 4,500 votes.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And so it's curious now, if we look at, with only 5 polls showing that we've got, you know.
So it's on the screen right now. The problem is I just can't read it at this point in time.
It's a little far from me.
And I don't have it quite available, but
with only 5 polls showing at this point, the number 6 spot has got 2,000 votes.
Yeah.
And so I think in order to make it this year, you're going to need far more. And that baseline might be somewhere around 5,000 or 6,000.
Absolutely.
so that breakdown was 4,916 Chris Clute. So that baseline is definitely going to be up by about 1,500 over what it was 4 years ago. Okay, now we're up to 6 polling stations reporting. So this will be Evergreen Hall number 4. So we've basically hit 2 major downtown. And again, Ken Popoff is continuing to build his lead. He went from 2,474 up to 2,910, whereas Sam Waddington only rose to 2,250. And he was over the 2,000 mark when we saw last reports. Sharon Gates remains at 1,890. We're seeing Louis and Harv for that number 6 spot on council, 50 votes apart. I think that's going to be a real tight race as we get through. And number 8, again, that number 8 line is 500, almost 500 votes behind the number 7 spot.
Well, and that switched up as well. It went to Terry was ahead the last time we looked at it.
Yeah, but it's only a 1-vote swing at this point in time. Patty has 1 more vote than Terry does at this point in time. So I'm sure they'll flip-flop back and forth. The bigger issue is going to be getting from number 8 to number 7 is a bit of a daunting task at this point in time. We have 7,657 ballots counted, which is about 25? No, it's about 33% nearly. 31% of the ballots counted.
Right, if we're expecting 23,000 ballots to be cast today, then we know that we've already counted over 1/3 of those ballots. So there is a trend that's emerging. Unfortunately, we don't see the percentage of the vote here, but you know, Mayor Gates is facing a pretty significant challenge to overcome the deficit she's facing, given that 1/3 of the vote is already in.
But now we have yet another extremely interesting change, and this is Greendale Fire Hall, where, again, Ken Popoff a sizable lead at 3,291, but Sharon Gates picked up a bunch. Yeah. Sharon Gates is 6 votes behind Sam Waddington for the number 2 spot at this point in time, yet no significant change in the councillor run. So Sharon was, well, she would have picked up a very sizable number of votes 600 votes out of Greendale. Now, is that a good area for Sharon? You know, what's the answer there? Sharon picked up 570 votes, and Sam Waddington picked up 216 votes to Ken Popoff's 381. So that's a pretty significant return in the case of Sharon for that area. So.
It's interesting to see on there Bud Mercer at the number 3 spot. So it just goes to show you, not only did he do well in the mayoral debates and in his campaign, but just that topic that we were talking about, that crime and the visible stuff that's there with his experience.
So we're starting to get now the results from Promontory. We've had 8 out of 19 polls, 9,530 ballots that have been cast counted. Again, Ken has a 750 plus vote lead, 3,500 votes cast for Ken to Sam's 2,714. Sharon is about 175 behind at this point in time. Again, we're seeing Harv build a bit of a lead on Louis Dieger, 3,421 to 3,117 for that council spot, and a big gap between number 7 and 8. Terry Cross picked up that number 8 spot over Patty McAhonick, but you know, there is a fairly significant gap going between 7 and 8 as we have 8, almost, we're getting close to 50% of the polling stations now reporting.
One of the things that happened with Ken that was interesting was Jason Lum putting his real effort towards this last night. So they went out into neighborhoods, I think in Garrison and other places, and it was pedal to the metal right to the end. So I know that Jason has been a big supporter of Kent's. Not only just saying I support him, but actually getting out there and pounding the pavement with him. So, that may be, that's a lesson to everybody in politics. You push it right till the end. So we'll see if it holds.
Well, the fun part is that, or the interesting part is, as hard as they've worked, when they're in, the work's just beginning.
Yeah.
That's very true. You're working hard, so you have the right to and the opportunity to work even more.
Yeah.
Maybe just to swing down the list a little bit to the Parks Board and school trustee, Darcy Bauer, David Renwick running as a slate, almost an identical number of votes. They're 20 apart, and Pat Quigley is close to 600, over 600 votes behind either Darcy or David at this point in time. So I think that the Parks Board people have, let's not call it an official result, but I think that at this point in time, it's fairly well spoken. Our 7 school trustee elected at this point in time, and it's a tight race between 7 and 8. Dan Coulter, one of the incumbents, clearly in the lead at close to 4,000 votes. Barry Neufeld, second in line at 3,567. Number 7, Jared Mumford at 2,641. He's 1,000 votes behind Barry Neufeld. So it's safe to say that Barry will probably retain his seat at this point in time. I can't imagine there'd be any significant change after we've
and another one of the slate made it up to number 5 or 6 there as well.
Is that Kathy Jones?
And Daryl Ferguson as well.
Daryl Ferguson at number 7 at this point.
Katie Jones, I believe.
Katie, sorry, yes.
So Ferguson.
Yeah.
So again, it's kind of what we talked about. It looks at this point almost a 50-50 split.
Yeah. And we've seen the second poll number 9 come in, which is Promontory Heights number 2. Sam has picked up a little bit here. He was about 750 votes off. He's now only about 520 off. Sharon didn't do so well in this one, so 4,093 votes for Ken Popoff to Sam's 3,557, and Sharon at 3,157. Again, when you look at the councillor slate, Lum, Clute, Mercer, Shields, Attrell all doing quite well. Harv Westring at 4,068 votes, 500 behind number 5, Sue Attrell, and has a fairly sizable lead now on Louis Dieger at over close to 300 votes going in. So, we're starting to see that number 6 and 7 line get drawn on the councillor slate at this point in time.
Just a commentary about the school board, and it's a bit of a bugaboo with me, is that I think it's never quite given the respect that it deserves. Those individuals handle a budget that is sometimes actually larger than city council. There's 1,700 employees, and if you don't think school board matters, check your tax bill. Because
last I checked, they were the city's largest employer. Actually.
Absolutely. So the school taxes are remitted, and so they have a huge job in making sure that the next generation of kids are ready to take on leadership, become the workers, and it's very interesting to see that the slate, people didn't vote for the slate so far. Some individuals, but not the slate in total.
Well, and that job's going to get harder in the next upcoming years. We're seeing a population growth every single year, especially with school-age children. And so we've got one new school coming online in the River's Edge area there, but that's not going to be open until 2021.
I can't remember the exact date.
Something like that. So what are we going to do in the meantime with a growing population, with most of our schools at 100% capacity or higher, and every year another 300 children coming to our community? And even when that River's Edge school opens up, is that going to be enough? There's going to be a lot of pressure on the school board to solve these problems, because I believe children are getting turned away at schools.
Oh, they are. I heard a few people saying it was about 40. I think it was about 40 kids, average of 40 kids per school, being turned away or showing up not registered, thinking that they're getting in. So definitely
absolutely.
a huge impact on families.
And I think if my facts are correct, Chilliwack has the greatest per capita number of portables in the province.
That came up, yeah.
I think one of the things, unfortunately, because of the controversial nature of what happened in this election, is that issues around how many kids are actually graduating and how many aren't. What are our reading results? Do we have literate and numerate kids? Issues around, I think one of the issues that needs to happen is better collaboration between the school district and city council in terms of identifying land. Getting land for schools is just incredibly difficult in Chilliwack.
So we do have another update, and this is should be 10 out of 19 polls reporting, and this includes now all of Promontory Heights and now Rosedale Traditional Community School. So we have 12,915 votes counted of approximately 23,000 votes cast. We don't know what the final number was in that final hour, whether it was 1,600 or so, but assuming 2,300, so we're at 23,000. We're over halfway there. Ken Popov with a solid lead at just shy of 4,600 votes to Sam Waddington's 3,863.
Look at the race
but look at the race between Sharon and Sam here. Sharon's only 2 votes behind in that case. And again, on the councillor run, we've got Jason Lum, Chris Clute, Bud Mercer top 3, Jeff Shields 4th, Sue Attrell 5th. She's got about a 200 vote lead on Harv Westring at number 6, but Harv Westring has a 1,000 vote lead on Louis de Jager in spot number 7, and that makes it then a 1,400 vote lead between 6 and 8. So that line is starting to get drawn in that respect, and that it's looking as questionable as we thought it was going to be.
Absolutely, back and forth.
Yeah.
Imagine what they're going through right now. Nails are definitely getting shorter.
Barry knows all about this, right? So.
Yeah, at this point, the candidates will be looking at the different parts of the community where the votes are coming in, and as we saw, Mayor Gates is polling much stronger in some of the outlying areas out towards Rosedale. It's maybe not a surprise that Sam would have done better downtown, but it's maybe there's still about 10,000 votes to come. So there's still, while Ken Popov has a margin, there's still enough votes out there to be counted that things could change.
Well, 600 votes is not a large margin in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, well, it's changed again, Darren. So we now have 14,648 votes cast, and Sharon Gates is in second place at this point in time. So Ken Popoff with 5,264 votes to Sharon's 4,394. Sam Waddington not far behind at 4,319. But we're talking almost it's about a 900 vote lead at this point in time. After about 60% of the votes are now counted. No major change on the councillor run. Harv Westring still has a 1,000 vote lead over Louis de Jager for that number 6 spot on council. I think it's safe to say Jason Lum is in at 9,200 votes. That's pretty solid. Chris Clute at 8,179. Bud Mercer, and I mean that's an interesting number for Bud. Well known in the community, but I think his performance in the public and at the all candidates meetings, and of course his knowledge are just what's done that for him. Sue Attrell is, I would say, fairly safe. We're talking about 1,000 vote swing between number 6 and number 7. This may be the final slate that we get to see after all said and done.
Just a comment about Sue. One thing I know about her is she's extremely diligent. So she comes to council meetings. She is absolutely well prepared. And, again, she's not maybe a loud person that runs around saying, look at me, but you do see her at everything. And she's involved in the community and obviously at hospice. So, I think she's been solid. And I know that some people questioned whether she would get on. There was some debate out there, but I think she has worked hard in her term.
Absolutely.
And what's happening with school board?
Well, we're at 12 of 24 school board polls reporting, and it's still a tight race for that number 7-8. Katie Jones at 4,676 for the number 7 seat to Jared Mumford's 4,585. So it's about a 200-vote swing at this point in time. Katie on the anti-Sogi slate. Daryl Ferguson is in the number 6 spot. Barry Neufeld in the number 2 spot. So a few that are on the anti-Sogi swing, anti-Sogi slate, sorry, will make up less than half of the school board at this point in time, but still have a chance. But it's still a tight race between Jared, even Irma Vitores, who is on the anti-Sogi slate, is at 4,300 votes. So she's only about 300 votes off the pace at this point in time.
Yeah, but the bottom two are also on the anti-Sogi, so if there's a...
Brian and Michael. Yeah. Well, obviously Brian, sorry.
Gerald and Kathy?
Oh, okay, Daryl Ferguson.
Yeah,
yeah.
so even
Katie
if
Jones. Sorry, Daryl
government,
Ferguson as well, yeah.
You know, between 7, 8, and 9. You know, if we're looking at that, I guess, pro and against Sogi, it's at this point, it looks like it's going to be 4 versus 3.
I think evidence with the school board as well is that being an incumbent is an advantage. So people want, even if they want some change, they're often going to vote in current candidates to handle, who have some experience, and I think you've got both all 3 current ones. But those 3 vary widely as well in terms of their perspective. So Dan Coulter was on the progressive list, and whereas Heather Moss was on another list. So you've got, and Sylvia Dick did not get involved in either of those camps, which I think is interesting and maybe was wise on her part, but seen as being somebody who's been there, I think, probably close to 20 years now.
Absolutely. Well, as we continue the anticipation here, we're going to jump to a commercial, and when we get back, I anticipate that we'll have some more results for you. So stay tuned.
So we have
cheap.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I've got the cheap pot at home.
But there are some really nice designs.
Educate me.
Tea, white tea, oolong tea, black tea, all come from this plant. This is called Camellia sinensis. There's a larger leaf version.
If you love somebody enough, you follow wherever they go.
Yes, rock and roll guitar. It's my favorite guitar.
Spider Lodge. Watch for it this fall on social media and Chill TV. Your TV, your way. On December 1st, if you can't get to the parade in person, watch it on the Chill TV live stream. Rotary Christmas Parade of Chilliwack, sponsored by the City of Chilliwack and live streamed on chilltv.ca. Your TV, your way.
All right, we are back, and as promised, we do have some more results. Kevin, what are our new results here?
Well, Ken Popoff at this point in time has received 35.4% of the poll of the votes from my ace statistician, Barry. 7,204 votes. Sharon Gates in second place at 6,146. There's an 1,100 vote swing there.
And that's about 30% of the vote for Sharon.
Yeah, that's after about 30% for Sharon and 6,065 for Sam. So Sharon and Sam are all of 80 votes off at this point in time. But it looks like after 20,363 votes cast that Ken Popoff has this one, I'm not going to say in the bag, but pretty close. We might have 3,000 more votes if the numbers that have been coming from the hourly vote counts are correct. We've only got 14 out of 19 reporting, and there's only 3,000 more votes to count.
So what are the 5 stations left to?
The 5 stations left. We've dealt with Sardis Elementary and Watson now, so we're actually, there aren't going to be many because we are dealing with a lot of the special opportunities. So Yarrow Community Hall is next. That's probably the next biggest. Then you have special voting opportunities 1 and 2, which were October 19th. That's probably the hospital yesterday because they would have walked around the wards and given people the opportunity. You've got the advanced voting 1 on October 10th, advanced voting 2 on October 17th, which is a total of 2,400 votes that will be counted, approximately. Then you've got the FVRD advanced voting 1 and 2, and you've got the Popcom Fire Hall, but those ones don't count. Once you get to advanced voting 1 and 2, that is it for Chilliwack City Council. So advanced voting 1 and 2 are probably the 2 biggest ones at this point in time, after, aside from maybe Yarrow. So we're getting down to the real nitty-gritty, and we've got now 15 polls reporting. Yarrow Community Hall, again, Ken Popoff with a 900 vote lead over Sharon Gates, 74-61 to Sharon's 65-54, and Sam in third place at 63-21. Still an 800 vote lead of Harv Westring in that number 6 council spot to Louis Diager at the number 7 spot, and that's after 21,326 votes are reported. We'll see if there's just one more update.
While you're updating that, I just do want to give a shout out here to the people here at CORA Chilliwack and at Chill TV. You should see the equipment. I mean, this is a real professional thing we have going on here, a real professional studio. So kudos to all of you for putting this together and for allowing us to invade your space.
Thank you.
Just trying to work out the percentage here. Looks like
Ken
is still at 35, still around 35%. So he's holding at about 35%.
So 21,326 votes cast, or votes counted, ballots counted at this point. 15 of 19 polling machines reporting Ken Popoff with about a 900 vote lead over Sharon Gates and about 35% of the vote at this point in time.
And how much is she ahead of?
Sharon and Sam are only 200 votes split at this point in time, 65-54 to 63-21. Again, a sizable lead between Harv Westring for councillor spot number 6, 800 votes over Louis Diager, who's at this point in time not going to get a councillor spot. Jason Lum at 13,800 votes, over 50% of the vote goes to Jason.
And that's before Yarrow.
Yes.
And that's including Yarrow.
Yarrow just came in.
Yeah, Yarrow. Jason owns
He's
Yarrow.
The mayor.
The mayor of Yarrow. So now we're at, we've got one of the special voting opportunities. Yeah, that's not going to be a huge one. It didn't change the numbers much because that's the Chilliwack Hospital voting station, the special opportunity that was done yesterday. So no significant change in anything at that point in time.
So with 21,393 votes cast, I'm expecting we're only going to see maybe another 1,500 votes to come in. It's going to be hard to move the needle.
There's a little more than that. There's 2,000 votes on the advanced poll days. So advanced poll 1 and 2
so those have not yet.
Yeah, those have not been. Those are last to come in. So and that was 1,500 votes on the 17th and about well, it's 2,500 votes all in.
Are there any
So,
rural polls not reporting yet?
there's no rural polls that matter from the standpoint of the councillor and mayor election. The rural polls only matter for the school board at this point in time. And
So let's have a look at Parks Board and School Board then.
sure, we can show that on the screen, guys. Parks Board, Darcy Bauer and David Renwick in spot number 1 and 2 with a 1,300 vote lead. David Renwick over Pat Quigley at number 3. So, you know, again, there's only 25, maybe 2,600 votes to be counted at this point in time. Fairly safe, at least for Darcy Bauer. On the school board side of things, this one does have 24 total polling centers, and we probably won't be on the air through the end of it all because the outlying areas have to be all brought in, but we have Dan Coulter. Go ahead, Barry.
I was just going to say, it looks like that number 7 spot is really up for grabs at this point with Katie Jones.
Is 65.
Just out of contention, but only by about 60 votes.
Yeah, so there's a real tight race going on there. Daryl Ferguson is only 5 votes ahead of the number 7 spot, and then David Swanky, of course, is close to 400 votes ahead of the number 6 spot. So it's Daryl Ferguson, Jared Mumford, and Katie Jones. Those 3 are going to probably battle it out at this point in time for the number 6 and 7 spot, and then, of course, who is out after that.
Looking at that, I think it augurs for some very interesting times on the school board in the coming 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you question, you know, they obviously have some big gaps in agreement with the SOGI, but can they work together as a team to tackle all the rest of the school board issues? And that's, you know, that's the bigger concern, I would think.
That's always a key with elections and with when we're putting together people is working together as a team. I mean, you can have people that are champions, but you know, there's that sports analogy that says, you know, a championship team will always beat a team made up of champions. Yep. So that's so important as people go to the polls to think about how are people going to work together to get things done in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of that will also depend on very shortly thereafter, so sometime probably, I think in December, the chair and the vice chair get elected. And so there will be a lot riding on the leadership of those 2 people in terms of bringing together that disparate group of individuals.
So here's where we're at now. We are waiting on the final advance poll, which was the 17th, which is 1,500 ballots. But Ken Popov is well in the lead, 7,842 votes. Sharon Gates, 6,956, and Sam's 6,545. The only way Sam Waddington will be mayor now is if every single advance poll on Wednesday the 17th went to him. Right. He is out of contention at this point in time. And it's highly unlikely that Sharon Gates got 900 out of 1,500 votes at this point in time on the Wednesday advance poll. When we look at the councillor run, Jason Lum, Chris Clute, Bud Mercer, the top 3, Jeff Shields, number 4, Sue Atchell, number 5. They're pretty much untouchable from Louis Diager. And there's an 800 vote swing in Harv Westring. So again, if the only way that Louis Diager is going to make that number 6 spot and oust Harv Westring is if he got 800 votes to Harv's 0. So the odds, probably fairly slim, and we're expecting the update to happen at any point in time. 22,396 ballots have been counted, and another 1,500 will come in, giving us approximately 23,700 as the total votes cast. Congratulations, Chilliwack.
What percentage of that of voter turnout is that?
Well, I have to switch. I have to. No, it's a little over 35%. 20. It's about 37%.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I always said I predicted 29.4% as voter turnout. I said I hope I'm wrong, and we all did our part to make sure that everybody was low. I'd love to have seen it double. If we'd had 32,437 votes, that would have been exactly double last year, 52%. But I mean, congratulations to everybody for finding what was 8,000 more voters this year. That's fantastic news.
So my friend Dr. Darren Chernachan believes in statistics, so I'm going to just cite the percentages again. Just crunch the numbers. Ken Popov is holding at about 35% of the votes cast so far for mayor. Sharon Gates is at 31%, and Sam Waddington at 29.2% based on the latest numbers.
And now we have the final numbers in.
That 35% was relatively consistent for
so now we have the final numbers in. So these, again, are unofficial and will be verified before Wednesday. But Ken Popov is the new mayor of Chilliwack.
Wow.
With 8,432 votes. Sharon Gates in second place at 7,426, so 1,000 behind. And Sam Waddington at 6,988. Dave Rowan, 775 votes, and Brigitte Crosby at 409 votes. Your slate of councillors will be incumbent Jason Lum at 15,604 votes, Chris Clute, 13,298, Bud Mercer, 12,053, Jeff Shields, 10,857, Sue Attrell, 10,113, and Harv Westring at 8,745. Louis Dieger just missed it by about 800 votes, 7,931. So, interestingly, we figured 6,500 would be the number that's going to get you elected. It's nice to see that it's 80. It's nice to see it's a high bar, 8,745. On the Parks Board, Darcy Bauer and David Renwick, both in. David Renwick being second place at 8,962. Pat Quigley with 7,331. And we are still waiting on 5 more polls from the school trustees, and it's a tight race between 7 and 8. Daryl Ferguson is about 100 votes away, 100 votes ahead of Katie Jones for that 7th spot for school trustee. Dan Coulter, Barry Neufeld, Heather Maas, Willow Reichelt, David Swanky, absolutely in without a doubt. Jared Mumford, Daryl Ferguson, and Katie Jones will be fighting out for the 6th and 7th spot.
Well, there we have it.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Great. And I just want to go on record as saying I called it.
You did.
I don't think anybody wants to go on record saying that, you know, we really had no idea where this was going to go. I mean, I figured Sharon would shoot up the middle. I certainly wavered on that over the last couple of days with everything that happened. And I honestly think that, you know, you had the people that are questioning Waddington, and you have the people that are questioning Sharon's tactics. Yep. And I think that's certainly what happened.
Yep. Yeah, just to build on that, I think one of the things that may have happened is that Ken stayed out of it. He didn't get involved in any of the, mudslinging isn't the word, but in any of the debate, and I wonder if that didn't augur well for him. I think the other thing with him, and I spoke with one voter, and I think I might have represented quite a few people. They said, you know, it's time we got somebody in there who comes from a background where you roll up your sleeves and really work. So they liked his approach to life and the fact that he stayed out of the fray.
Now, I think the other side of it is the people at Ken's business, not to give him a plug, they're probably pretty excited because they were wondering what they were going to make him do next week if he had to go back to work.
Well, it is interesting. It is interesting for people who ran and are not seeing a seat on council or a seat as the mayor. Definitely, as the night has progressed, you can imagine the emotions, you can imagine the things that they're going through. Imagine what they're thinking now. What does life look like now?
Well, on that note, I want to recognize the many years of dedication from Sharon Gates and her contributions to the community.
Absolutely.
I had a chance to work very closely with her when I was a member of the legislature for one of the Chilliwack ridings. So I know that she's put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and her family has also paid a price for that. So I want to really take my hat off to Sharon and to her family and to her supporters and recognize the service and contribution she's made to our community.
All right, well, speaking of Sharon Gates, let's go to Ian Parks, who's with Mayor Sharon Gates right now. Ian.
Thank you very much, Kirk. I literally had to rip Mayor Sharon Gates away from her friends and family to bring her to speak to everybody else. She's already had an opportunity to speak to everybody, and let me be first to publicly thank you for all of your years of service.
Thank you very much. It's been a beautiful 22 years of serving the community, first as a city councillor for 12 years, and then the last 10 years as the mayor of Chilliwack. I want to say a huge thank you to the people throughout the province that I've got to work with, the people from the Union of BC Municipalities, the Municipal Finance Authority, all of the people that I've made wonderful connections with. It's great to watch around the province and see the people that were re-elected in our province is in really good hands. I need to say that, of course, I'm disappointed, but I really do wish Councillor Ken Popoff, who is now Mayor Popov, in a couple of weeks. I want to wish him all the best and thank him for a race that was well run, and wish the council every success in the future. Oh, and I also forgot, I do really need to say a huge thank you to our staff for the work that they do every single day. They're the ones who make this city so great. Thank you to the media who continue to cover it, and of course, thanks to Chill TV.
Awesome. Well, thank you very, very much, Sharon. We really appreciate all of your service.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I forgot the most important part. Thanks to my husband, Jim. Thank you. Jim has been my partner my husband for 44 years. I've dated him for 47. My family's standing behind me, my son Jonathan and my daughter-in-law Joanne. And I'm so proud of my family. And you know, it's a little relieving that the election is over, and I now really will get the opportunity to spend more time with these beautiful people.
That's awesome. Very, very good luck in your next chapter of your life. We really appreciate all your service. Thank you. Back to you, Kirk.
All right, thanks, Ian,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Sharon Gates, for the 22 years that you've put into this community and into all of our lives. Let's talk about a couple things here as we get some results.
Well, let's look at the councillors. The number 7 to 14, we have 6 seats filled, but that means there's 8 people that have worked very hard for not just the last 4 weeks, but for several months to get here. If we go 7 to 14, those that were not successful councillors, Louis Dieger in 7th, Terry Cross in 8th, Patty McAhonick in 9th, Sandy Matthews in 10th, Deborah Sutar 11th, Lisa Moray at 12th, Ken Smith 13th, and Cameron Hull at 14th. And I'm actually a little bit surprised. Yeah. Cameron Hull has 2,547 votes to Ken Smith's 3,386. I'm a little bit surprised at the poor showing for Cameron Hull. He's been a great proponent of downtown. He's been heavily involved in the BIA. He was a business owner, very passionate individual. I'm not sure. I don't know what went wrong for Cam. I thought he ran a good, generally a good platform and a good campaign. Any thoughts on that around the table?
Well, you know, like so we talked about how he had run for mayor before. We talked about maybe name recognition, maybe a familiar name. Well, maybe it's not so much that. Maybe we do have a more strategic or informed or voter that's looking.
Well,
at
and you know, Cameron is a very passionate guy, and if you watch him at the debates, he was very staunch in his beliefs on some very key issues, and perhaps it was that it was a very strong opinion, and it maybe didn't resonate with the voter.
Yeah. That's very possible. The other one that I think might be surprising to some is Lisa Moray coming in 12th with 4,600 votes. I'm a little bit surprised, again, that we only have one woman on council. I thought that Lisa really carried herself well at the All Candidates Forums. And maybe let's talk to the woman on the panel. Diane, do you have any thoughts on that? And, you know,
I'm going to say something very revolutionary, but I don't think it matters if you're a woman. I think the voter basically says, who do I think can do the job? And they put the X there, which I actually think it should be. So
I don't disagree with you on that. You know,
I just think the women that were running, I think, very high quality. I know Patty McAhonick, for example, quite well. But I think, you know, sometimes the name recognition just doesn't quite get there. And it's, you know, and that does affect things. So I myself don't vote for whether a person is a certain gender, and I think most people don't either. That's my sense of it.
Well, I thought Louis is a hard worker. Louis ran in other elections before. Certainly involved in the community. Certainly very passionate about Chilliwack. Loves Chilliwack. Has owned a business here. So I thought he ran a good race. I thought he had some good things to say and answer to the questions that he was presented with.
Yeah, and you know, Louis took a very hard stance on pro-safe injection site, and again, that being a very hot topic, did that hurt him? You know, I'm not sure, but you know, it's a good question to ask, because you know, out of all of the debates, that's the one thing that really stands out in my mind was Louis' answer to that question.
And there was 2 that took a stance toward. I believe Sam Waddington was also pro-safe injection, whereas Jeff Shields, Chris Clute was against safe injection, I believe, in my recollection, and of course, Jeff clarified that he'd like to do a little more research, which is good, but...
I believe Sandy Matthews was also very against.
Yeah. Okay. I think Barry wants to talk about percentages one more time.
Well, I think it bears noting that it was really a very competitive three-way race for the mayor's position. Yes, there were other candidates for mayor, but as expected, it really did come down to a three-way race. And statistically speaking, it was actually very close. We had a very competitive three-way race. I can't remember that happening in my lifetime in Chilliwack before. So and I think that drove the interest at the polls. You saw that reflected in the turnout. The final percentages being Ken Popov at 35.2% of the votes cast, and Mayor Gates back at 30.9%. So just about 31%, really not that far behind. And then right behind her was Sam Waddington at 29.1% of the votes cast. So very much a three-way race.
Yeah.
Although throughout Ken did hold the lead, lost some ground in the Greendale area, but overall started strong and finished as the winner.
I think one of the things that happened with, a range of things that happened actually quite recently with Sam Waddington was, a range of things coming out. For example, his attendance record, that came out. Then the unions pulled support and issued a letter with respect to that. So there were just a range of things that I think probably hurt him. And I think the result might have been a little different, if a few months ago. But I think those things coming one after another just resulted in enough doubt in people's minds that they weren't prepared to go with the change. And maybe even his view on, for example, fiscal responsibility and pay as you go was an entirely different approach for Chilliwack, and they just maybe were not ready for that.
Well, you definitely have, that's a polarizing issue, because you have some people that are not afraid of debt and are perhaps maybe even too easily swayed to get into debt. And then you have people who are absolutely in love with not being in debt as a part of their life. So definitely an issue that would have been voted on for sure by people in this election. Other issues, what do you think the other big impacts were looking at the councillors that were elected?
I'm not surprised that Jason topped the polls. He's just such a solid individual. His work on FERD, and he is another one of those roll your sleeves up kind of people. And as a result, I think his positive interactions with everybody really show well for him.
Yeah, and if you look at just sort of his track record, Jason's the kind of guy that doesn't shy away from using his voice in other arenas when it comes to talking to the province about things that our municipality needs, and even working with them to figure out different ways and negotiating different ways to get our community what it wants. So I think Jason does a good job, and apparently so do many people that voted for him.
And there's a humility there. I was talking to him last week, and he said he came in to a Chilliwack Community Services event, and he said, well, last night I was at the Yarrow Community Hall chopping onions. So, so I think that...
Is he crying tonight?
With
Tears of
joy.
Tears of
joy.
So the interesting thing is he got, 14,000 votes?
He got, 15,604 votes.
15,600, which was more than what Sharon got virtually unopposed as mayor last election.
Yeah, Sharon got 10,200.
Yeah.
However, also 8,000 more voters.
Right. Fine, all I'm saying is that this is probably the most anybody's ever got, most votes anybody's ever got.
Oh, there was no councillor in 2014 that had over 10,000 votes.
Yeah.
Sam Waddington was the highest in the 9,200 range, which again I think was due in part to his marketing. But the top 5 councillors got over 10,000 votes.
Yeah, so you mentioned marketing when it came to Sam's campaign in 2014, so you wonder if maybe that didn't play a part as well. As last election, he was the only one doing it. And this election, virtually everybody, from council to mayor, was playing that social media game. And so you wonder if maybe that's what gave him the foot up or the edge last time.
It muddies the water a little bit. And of course, your supporters are always defending the person they support.
Right.
And all your supporters are, also saying maybe bad things about the person they don't support, trying to gain that upper hand. I think, that social media is it's a dangerous ground and a scary ground in that respect too.
I think it'd be worth it to talk a bit about Sharon's accomplishments. I mean, not only was she a mayor, but she topped the polls for many years as a councillor. And so if you look at the incredible rapid growth of Chilliwack, you look at the Evans flyover, you look at the Vetter Bridge, you look at the two leisure aquatics facilities, the curling rink. I mean, she's had a hand in all that. And the city, and what she hands over to Ken is a debt-free city, and a city that's in very good shape moving forward. So I think she deserves our thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that always has impressed me about Mayor Sharon Gates, still mayor, I guess, until a few weeks from now, is she always remembers everyone's name. She always has an answer for questions that are asked to her, and the answer isn't normally fluffy. It usually comes with statistics. It usually comes with, here's who I met with, here's what we did, here's who this counselor has talked to, and here's what we're doing in this area. So definitely someone who has taken on the role of mayor as part of who she is, a very defining position in her life for many years. And in my opinion, has done it very well.
You know, I'll say this about Sharon as well. I've gotten to know her well. She's in our radio station every 2 weeks on Thursday mornings, and we're hoping Ken will do that as well. But she has come in, and we've done our Ask the Mayor segment. When we initially set this up, the first thing she said was, well, I don't want to be put on the spot. I want to be able to have answers and not say, I don't know, I'll get back to you. So we set the forum up on we would feed her the question a couple days before so she could come in prepared. Now, we often would throw one or two nuggets in there whenever we could to, kind of keep her on her toes. But she really was so good at coming with the right answer as opposed to just saying, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you. She would not speculate, and good for her on that.
Let's keep talking about Sharon for just a second. We are going to go live with our mayor-elect, Ken Popov, in just a few minutes. The crew has arrived there and is just setting up, so we'll have our roving reporter over to you in just a few minutes.
Good, yeah. Speaking of Sharon, one of my first interactions with her was with the Chamber of Commerce, and I was blown away with her knowledge just off the top of her head. She was very well schooled in all of the city's issues and knew the numbers right off the top of her head. She was very impressive that way.
Someone who just not only delegated what looks like wisely, asked people to be on certain committees, to take certain files, but also did do something that we talked about Ken doing. Did roll up her sleeves and did work hard for all of us here.
So now let's talk about the new council moving forward. This is exciting. So, we talked about the danger in massive change when we've got so many things rolling. And with, Ken as our mayor and with 3 of the incumbents back on there, I think that we've got a really good momentum into the future. And I, for one, am excited about what the future of the city looks like with this council.
It's just interesting to see just that topic of crime, right? That topic that we talked about, the RCMP, how Bud is going to affect all that. Because his insight, I can imagine it's got to be so great to have someone like that on a city council that can answer questions, and in times when maybe, because I've seen situations in different meetings where maybe the city of Chilliwack didn't quite agree with the RCMP, and they had some different views on who should do this. Should it be a bylaw officer? Should it be an RCMP member? Where someone who, with Bud's track record and his experience, will be able to really look at that.
Well, right now Jason Lum is chairing the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and so it'll be interesting to see if they make a shuffle there. It seems like a natural fit for Bud to at least be on that committee, if not chairing it. But again, just a great wealth of knowledge for that advisory committee.
All right, we're going to go live with Ian Parks. Ian is with Mayor-elect Ken Popov at the Royal Hotel. Ian, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Kirk. Ian Parks here down at the Wellington, and I'm here with Mayor-elect Ken Popov, who, in a tight race into the Chilliwack election, came through as the victor. How do you feel right now?
Holy moly, thanks. See, nice meeting you. Wow, yeah, I knew it was going to be a tight one. I knew I had a race with our two other contenders. The incumbent, Sharon Gates, I have a ton of respect for, has put a lot of time into the city of Chilliwack, and I'm so grateful to be the next step to move forward. We, as a city, has moved in a great direction, and I want to keep it going with a little more collaboration, a little more innovation. You know, Chilliwack's a great place to live. Obviously, you can see with our building starts, we are the most built-out community coming this way, and you can see with the highways, you know, with all the traffic. But it's cool. I'm excited. I'm overwhelmed. I had no acceptance speech thought out here. I have had, you know, a ton of supporters, as you can see, that join me tonight, and yeah, I'm so looking forward to the next 4 years of making Chilliwack as good as it is, if not better.
Well, acceptance speech aside, I think you've done a great job. You also mentioned just before we went on air here that your phone's blowing up. So obviously you've got a lot of supports. Congratulations on a hard-fought battle. You deserved it.
Thank you very much. I want to first off thank my wife publicly, my beautiful wife Gail. I don't know where she is, but she's put up with me for the last 8 months of this whole campaign. My campaign team has been awesome. We're some older guys that don't have the vision of some of the younger contenders that are out there, but we got it done. We got it done, and one thing that I'm not is a real I guy. I work in teams, and the work that I have done in the past with the teams has been overwhelming, and better things are going to come to Chilliwack. You know, it's not going to be perfect, but I know I'm going to make it better.
That's fantastic. I know I've followed the election a little bit, and I guess my next question is, what's next for you right now?
Well, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow. I'm going to chill out. Quite honest with you, I'm not sure what the next step is. I'm sure I'll be sitting down with our CIO, and he will send me on a course of what needs to be done. I'm excited. It's great to see the board that's been voted in that I get to work with, all like-minded folks that all have energy and excitement and want to keep Chilliwack moving. Yeah, it's going to be exciting times. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to just, you know, tonight I'm going to probably have a couple cocktails and take it all in and sleep in tomorrow, and then Monday's a new day. But I appreciate you guys following this campaign. It's been great. It's probably been the most socially published, if that's a proper word, you know, to get the campaign out, and people have spoken. You know, record numbers at the polls, which is great. I know there was it hasn't been like a marriage race for the last 3 years. School District 33 with what they got going on. It's awesome to see people engaged. And one thing that really, you know, set apart, I spoke at about, 3 or 4 schools, and these grade 5, grade 6, and then there was a couple Christian schools, and they're engaged in what's going on. And these kids is what we need engaged, because they are the next people that are going to be running the city. And you know, I want to have more youth engagement. I know our seniors is a big part. It's the largest growing population in the city. If you see the color of my hair, I'm not far off to be the same thing. But I love Chilliwack. I've grown up here. I volunteered. I put my time in, and I'm so happy to be where I'm at right now. And again, thanks for you guys for coming out tonight.
Well, thank you very much. Again, congratulations on the election. And on behalf of Chill TV, congratulations. Back over to you, Kirk.
Thank you.
All right, well, congratulations, Mayor-elect Ken Popov. In a couple of debates, you said you weren't a very good speaker, but those were quite a few words that you had to say, and they came out quite fluidly. So congratulations once again. My name is Kirk Dezamen. This is Kevin Gemmel. Barry Penner thankfully invaded our panel. as the election results waned a little bit. Diane Jansen, Darren Bosch, from all of us here, we just want to thank you for tuning in. To the candidates who ran, whether you won or lost, we really thank you for your support of our community, for your love for the city of Chilliwack, and for really wanting to make all of our lives better. Congratulations, you deserve our respect, and congratulations to the winners, of course. And you know, you thought you worked hard, but you know what? The job is just beginning. So we look forward to what you're going to do in leading us in the city of Chilliwack. Thank you to our sponsors here tonight. Thank you to Chill TV for broadcasting this live. Thank you to Co-work Chilliwack. This has been your 2018 municipal election coverage for the city of Chilliwack. Probably the first time ever live coverage, thanks to the talented people here. We just want to say thank you, Chilliwack, for being so engaged. The voter turnout was way better than before. You are awesome, and have a great night.